And now, time for the Justo's Best podcast. And here's your host, Marvin, Richie, Tony, and Justo. Good morning and welcome to the season finale of Justo's Best Podcast, Season 1. We are excited. We have a huge show planned for you. I am joined, as always, by three of my bestest friends in the entire world. Give it up for Marvin Scott. What's going on,
What's up,
Marvin?
Justo?
Doing good, man. Good to see you again. We got DJ Tony Ray.
What's up, Justo?
What's going on, man? And Richie Phillips. How you doing, man?
Hey, boys. Doing well. Glad to be here.
Me too. We have an awesome show. We got Abigail Linhardt on in a little bit. Can't wait to share with you guys everything that's going on today. But first, what was the best part of your week? Marvin, we'll start with you.
I can't even lie, Justo. I can't really pinpoint the best part of my week, but I can say it was a really good week. I got to have some great conversations with some friends who really continue to advocate and for what's been going on. They're continuing to step up and speak out. So I reached out to them and really expressed my gratitude and appreciation for them doing that. And that was the best part of my week, just knowing that we were in this together. And what more could you ask for in a friendship that's actually genuine? So that was the best part of my week.
Awesome, man. Yeah, it's like sometimes it's hard to really pinpoint the best part, but that is awesome, and we're here for you too, man.
Thank you.
Richie, what was the best part of your week?
Oh, best part of my week? Honestly, I just keep buying stuff for my apartment. I don't know how else to say it at this point. So bought a lovely coffee table. I told you gentlemen the price. I'm not going to tell our audience out there, but it was a pretty penny. It was not cheap. I also bought some metallic metal posters that I can magnetize to the wall that I'm actually got my computer set up at. So when you guys see the video down the road and we do our video Justo's Best or Justo's Best Presents or whatever we end up changing this name to potentially, you're going to see that. What it is it's all the international cities I've traveled to. So what I've been thinking about recently is how can I archive my life? How can I do things that can fill my space and fill my home with things that are personal to me? Because, a lot of the times if you have family, you start having photos of you and your couples and your children. Well, I'm a single guy, right? So I don't want to just have 70 photos of myself. I mean, I'm not like Marvin and I have these beautiful headshots, so I don't really have that luxury. So I was like, well, what can I do? So I kind of just thought of something that I thought is kind of creative, something that I can branch out and expand upon and kind of just increase the size of this. And for now, it'll be one wall, but down the road, it might be almost an entire room because I've actually been to 47 countries. So I've got a lot of cities I could hit this with. It's just a matter of I don't have the money to do so. So far, best part of my week, once again, is just buying a whole bunch of stuff, going to the protests on the weekends and just calling it a day, man. Nothing too crazy.
Awesome, man. Awesome. DJ Tony Ray, what was the best part of your week?
Well, fellas, the best part about my week was I played Age of Empire with my wife's siblings for the second time this week. And let me just tell you, I suck. The first game, I lasted about 25 minutes. I was the first one off. The next game was much better, but I still have a lot of work to do. So, being able to spend time with family is really great. So that was really the best part about my week. And my wife kind of laughed and made fun of me because I actually didn't last as long as she did when she normally plays. And I'm supposed to be the gamer. So that was the best part about my week.
That's funny.
That's awesome, man. Best part of my week, we did a little tester protest in the front yard here that I'm going to be taking at other places. But I set up my DJ equipment, and the idea is just to get some involvement from people passing by on the road while maintaining all the proper guidelines set by the city. So we were doing so, but we were a little loud. I know we tested walking 2 blocks and we could hear it pretty good. Sounded like an event was coming on, or going on, sorry. And then this gentleman walked from 4 blocks away and he came up and he was like, "Hey man, I appreciate everything you're doing and supporting the cause, but will you please turn that down?" And it was awesome to me because he could have, from that far away, just called the police and got me shut down, but he came all the way down and and talked with me, and that was awesome. It was the best part of my week. Coming up, we have positive news and dad joke of the week with DJ Tony Ray. You're listening to the Justo's Best podcast.
I'm Marvin Scott III, actor, coming at you live from New York City, and you are listening to Justo's Best.
I'm just an outlaw, ain't got no wheels to run. Fatherless man and a mama's only son. Joker turned toker, a bully without a gun. Still shoot for the top, but the top don't ever come. The world don't spin for you. Do what you gotta do, whatever gets you through. Whatever gets you through. See more as a boy than most folks ever have. Held the hand of a man, watched him take his final breath. Gambled my life, found out that's something you shouldn't bet. Stared death in the eye, said, I'm not leaving just yet. The world don't spin for you. Do what you gotta do, whatever gets you through. Whatever gets you through. The world don't spin for you. Do what you gotta do, whatever gets you through. Whatever gets you through. Whatever gets you through.
And now, time for positive news with Justo on the Justo's Best podcast. All right, time for positive news. First story this week, guys. We kind of covered this last week in some effect. We're talking about companies donating to the cause. PayPal this week has made a $530 million commitment to support Black and minority-owned businesses and communities in the U.S., especially those that were the hardest hit by the pandemic. CEO of PayPal, Dan Schulman, says, for far too long, Black people in America have faced deep-seated injustice and systematic economic inequality. We must take decisive action to close the racial wealth gap that sustains this profound inequity. I thought it was very relevant to a point that Richie brought up where, you know, these companies are donating, that's great, but part of the issue is this has been an issue for so long. Why did it take this for them to donate, and why is it such an aimless donation? You know, we're just going to help racial injustice. Well, here's PayPal, and they're saying we are specifically, you know, going to apply this money to support Black and minority-owned businesses, which, you know, I think is awesome. Marvin, what are your thoughts?
It's like you said, he took it upon himself to take decisive action. And I think in terms of the specificity of where the money is going, I think we have a better clarification now. Richie was right. A long time ago, I felt like it was aimless money. And you look at similar companies such as, for example, the United Way or the American Red Cross, who've made millions of donations. And I think that people actually were speculative about where the money was going. And I think that this is a great deed towards Black-owned businesses that were hit during the pandemic. And not only does it send a great message, I think that more companies should do their part in terms of what they can do to help Black-owned businesses and any other minority business that took a hit during the pandemic. So I think that it was great. That was a great move.
Awesome, man. Yeah, thank you. I completely agree with you, and let's hope that more companies follow the lead. Richie, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I'll say this much. I'm always trying to be positive on things. I still believe, obviously, this happened due to the situation and what's going on in terms of the depths and gravity of how much these protests have led to this. I don't think inherently PayPal would have just done this just because they're good-spirited and good-willed people. However, I'll say that it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, it's a great contribution, and this is a start. But like I said last week, I really want to see more representation within the company. PayPal, if you really care, show us you care. Put people in positions of power. Put people in the board. I had mentioned it last week, and I didn't mention his name, but his name is Alexis Ohanian. He stepped down. He's the Reddit founder and former CEO stepped down, said put a Black person in this position. And that's the kind of leadership I want to see from these larger companies. Now, I'm not saying everybody that's in a board of directors and that type of thing stepping down per se, but open up these positions. Make sure people of color are represented, all types of people of color. But quite frankly, that's what I want to see. Yes, it's a great contribution. But, as people, that's what I urge us to do, is for us to support these businesses and for us to get there and help them out. And what we need for everybody, women, Black people, Hispanics, all people of color, we need representation in upper management. And that's what I want to see from businesses. We're not there yet, and we're still not there. But I'm never going to denigrate a $500 million contribution specific to Black-owned businesses. It's a great step. I do appreciate that. I feel like there's a lot more value in that. And unlike these, and I kind of basically called it that, but these pathetic $10 million donations from the biggest tech companies in the world, this is something. This is $500 million. This is a good step from a financial position. I appreciate it. I still think, obviously, I don't give it 100% authenticity, but the bottom line is it doesn't matter. It's a great contribution. But I really want to see executives start really contributing, not just businesses.
Well, I'm probably gonna make some people upset with my point of view, but the question was why all of a sudden, you asked, Justo, and because it's never too late to pay it forward. However, paying it forward to all small business owners across America. You know who's hurting? All small business owners, period. But if you only focus on a specific group, you're going to create more hatred and anger in the world that we live in. It's time to hit the reset button we keep talking about. You want fair inequality? Start with your actions and donations. If you focus on one group, it doesn't matter, and it will be like this revolving battle that we keep getting ourselves caught up on. It'd be round 25, and we're looking around going, when does the fight end? You asked, is it guilt-based? I believe for some it is, and for others it's not. Guilt or no guilt, we have a chance to make a difference together. Throwing money at one issue doesn't fix everything. It's like medicine you take. It heals one thing, but you have a cluster of side effects. The money they donated from big companies is a nice gesture. But what they need to do is remove racist employees and make an example of them. Remove the cancer so it stops spreading. If they can do it to Cap, and by Cap, I mean Colin Kaepernick, who was fighting for equality, then they can do it to those who are fighting against inequality. And that's my point of view. I agree with what everyone was saying. have it be focused on, something specific. But I think that if we go down that road, guys, if we don't make it about everybody, because guess who's hurting? It's not just one specific small business. It's blacks, it's whites, it's Hispanics, it's Asians. So if we're going to do what's right, we need to start by doing what's right for everybody. And that's my point of view.
Like, again, because what you're saying is a good step into positivity. And again, I don't think your point is wrong. Like, from my perspective, though, it's like, so you're talking about all businesses are struggling, and you're 100% right. There's, everybody, small business owners are all struggling. But the reality of small business owners is 82% of small business owners are white, and more importantly, when we're talking nationwide, and more importantly, have access to better loans, better percentages than minorities. So minorities do need more help. So there's inequality in the country as a whole. So you can't, to say, oh, everyone should be treated equally. Well, we're not treated equally as is. If everyone got the same 3% APR loan and financing, then it would be equal, but it's not. And particularly for people of color, I'm excluding Asians, but in this case, like Hispanics and blacks, they get much higher percentages on their loans. I know this personally because I know someone who's a small business owner, and he's Latino, and he has a 9.5% loan that he's taken out on his business. And I know for a fact, if I were to go for a loan of that size, I probably get 4.5. Now, yes, my credit line is good, but that's not the point. The point is because I'm considered white passing in the sense of being Asian, I'd get a better loan than you'd be able to get any day of the week, even with the same credit score. But again, do I think that's worth discussing in the grand scope of our this episode? Not really. I get what you mean, but there can only be equality when we're all equal, when we actually have the same leverage. But right now, you got a giant standing tall, and you have people that are struggling, and the only way to help is to push them up first, and then when we're on an even playing field, that's when we can start treating everyone the same.
For my next story, guys, the Louisville, Kentucky Metropolitan City Council enacted a ban on no-knock police raids. They're naming this ban the Breonna Law, and it essentially is stating that the officer, when arriving at a house that they need to get into with the no-knock, what would have been a no-knock warrant, they have to knock and announce themselves as the police and then wait 15 seconds before forcing their way in. In my opinion, I think we're once again fighting the wrong fight, just like we talked about with the donations and things like that, because what happens when you go to a serial killer's house and he's in there killing somebody and you hey, police are here, they're dead. That 15 seconds might be enough. The problem is the police went into the wrong house and racially profiled Breonna Taylor and killed her. That's the problem. So whether or not the police are announcing themselves as they knock on doors, to me, naming that the Breonna Law is just as bad as Trump saying, hey, a bunch of people went back to work. George Floyd would be proud. What the hell? I don't get it. They're fighting the wrong fight. What are your guys' thoughts?
No, there's an issue with the law in itself. I believe that it enables racists to use it as a loophole to not only furthermore profile people in their own homes when they're not doing anything. I agree that the police should use warning before going into a home, especially before issuing a warrant or anything, because there could be a matter where it's a serious situation, whether it's domestic violence or a serial killer, you name it. But there's also the problem, like Richie highlighted, with the racism. That is the main issue. Because if it's like Tony or myself sitting in my home and there's a cop that announces himself at the door and say we got our headset on doing the show like we're doing now here on Justo's Best, and we don't hear him, he can come in and shoot first before he asks anything. So I think that it needs to be addressed in itself, and naming it the Breonna Taylor Law just further highlights just highlights how loud her name should be said because of what happened to her. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, Marvin, I know where you're coming from. This story to me is it's flat out bullshit. I'll just be honest. It's, hey, man, we messed up, and now we have to, cover it up and say that we're fixing stuff, and let's just put in the Brianna law and just what it'd be for her. Well, it shouldn't have been for her because it shouldn't have happened in the first place. And whether you knock or you don't knock, the reason why she's dead is not because you chose not to wait 15 seconds and go in, because even if you do that, what's the probability that she'd still be dead? It's the fact that we talk about change and implementing change and training and all these different aspects. But the reality is it's much more than that. We all take classes and sign a paper about sexual harassment and discrimination for a majority of our jobs that we're in, right? So now ask yourself how many times you see or hear those acts and no one says anything, maybe including yourself. The problem is that these men and women who are doing the work should be called out by the men and women next to them that know that potentially they are not living their best lives, their true selves, because they have hate in their heart. Because your friends or your family members or whoever else out in the world who talks a certain way, you know what kind of person that is. But instead we give them a badge, we give them authority, they think they have power, and they abuse it. The story is bullcrap. It's just a mass story to try to fantasize about, well, we're changing stuff up. We've been changing stuff up for years. Still the same outcome. I see no difference.
I feel the same way. Let me try to articulate it from my perspective. So let's set the scene. 12:40 in the morning, give or take, is what the report said. 12:40 in the morning. The police had suspected there were drugs at the house of this location, even though the person was already arrested and at the station. This other section, this group, went to this house. Maybe they didn't get this information relayed. And there's a lot of reasons why this death happened. 12:40 in the morning. So let's think about that. You're sleeping in your bed. It's 12:40 in the morning. People burst into your house, right? So her boyfriend, Kenneth Walker, has a license to carry a gun. Door gets kicked in. Bunch of men just start running into the house. So what does Kenneth do? He pulls his gun out, he walks out, and he shoots at somebody because there's people in his house running at him. So he shoots at somebody, and then they open fire and kill Kenneth and Brianna. So one, it's disingenuous on two levels. It's disingenuous because Brianna's name is what's being mentioned. Kenneth has not been mentioned at all, right? We didn't even discuss Kenneth, quite frankly, in episode 6. But the bottom line is, if this was genuinely an act to say we do not want that happening again, it would Brianna and Kenneth. But that's not the point. It's disingenuous for the second point. To even call it the Brianna law is already disgusting, because it doesn't matter. Okay, say they knock and say, we're the police, and give you 15 seconds at 12:40 in the morning when they're not awake. What woke them up is you bursted down the door and came running in with guns. That's what woke them up. How does this law change that? The only thing this law does is it forces them to have their body cams on 5 minutes before, during, and after. But to that I say, bullshit anyway. Why is their body cams not on the entire time? Why are there circumstances? So what? They know, oh look, we're outside the house. Get your timers out, boys. Let's put that little body cam. Why isn't it on? What is the reasoning for how are they going? Like, how do you enforce this 5 minutes before you decide to do an act? So let's go on the other ends of things. How is this productive in this sense? Now you have to think, oh, I got to turn this on 5 minutes before I do something, before it's a quote unquote invasion or entering a property. Well, what happens if, like Justo had mentioned, it's a serial killer? What, are they supposed to just kind of know, okay, well, we're about to get here, let's turn it on. Why don't you just have it on at all times? There's a lot of egregiousness involved with this. I think the most disgusting part is trying to name it after her as if it's in memory of her, as if this is going to somehow appease people or bring peace to her family, when it does none of that. I also think it's disingenuous in the sense of now you're putting restrictions and litigation to things that don't add value. It doesn't change the outcome. And by doing this, it will most likely not change future encounters, because the problem was never them entering the house, not announcing themselves as police. The problem was entering the house virtually ready to attack due to drugs, so to speak, seeing a black man with a gun and firing when you're entering their house at 1 a.m. when they should be asleep, and were asleep, quite frankly. She didn't even get out of the bed. So bottom line, I'm quite frankly disgusted by the whole concept for all the reasons I came out with. I think this is terrible. The only thing that in theory this does is, yes, it tries to add policy. And again, one of the things that's important is getting policies out here to help prevent these types of situations. But I think how do you enforce a lot of this is going to be impossible, because again, the outcome wasn't based on the 5-minute cameras. It wasn't based on announcing themselves as police. Now, maybe if Kenneth were awake, and maybe if Kenneth heard that, he wouldn't have shot a gun. Fair. But who's to say he doesn't come out and they still fire at him anyway? So there's a lot of issues with this that I have. I could go on for 30 more minutes. So point being, my quick take, disgusting. Yes, it's a law. Yes, it's, I guess, kind of in the right step, but it's very distasteful to name one of the victims this law, not both, let alone naming any victim the law as if it's in memory of them, as if this is a positive thing. So not happy about it. I mean, I don't know what else to say. I'm kind of dumbfounded that they named it after her, quite frankly. I think you just enter a policy and let it be a policy. This is, again, trying to get goodwill in Louisville right now, when clearly they're having a lot of trouble with that, as they should be. So I've nothing else to say.
Yeah, I'm completely here with you guys. Disgusted, and okay, so we're talking about policies and things that need to be changed. Like I said in my previous statement, you're fighting the wrong fight. You're making up, like Tony said, something to try to cover up what happened. How in the living hell did that mistake even happen? If you've got the person that you think you're breaking into their house to stop from selling drugs and things like that, if you've already got them in custody, there's never going to be a good reason as to why you broke into another house looking for the same person, period. Let alone with guns, let alone with the intention to kill. Yeah, they got shot at, but they would have got shot at breaking into my house too in the middle of the fucking night. Don't think that because you are putting this in the media at the right time, in quotation marks, you're doing anything to resolve or fix what happened there that night. That doesn't help at all. The body cam should absolutely not even be controlled by the officer. When that thing gets strapped onto their chest, it should be live, and it should be live feeding to somebody who is watching. I know people whose job is to sit and watch security footage for factories. That's their whole job, is to watch security footage all day. I've thought to myself, wow, that must be boring, but that's what they do. How come we don't have somebody doing that for our police officers who are out there with guns, who are out there with mace, and right now dealing with these protests, rubber bullets and wooden bullets and stuff like that? I mean, you gotta look, I don't know. I'm going to wrap it up and we'll move on to another subject. But I think I wanted to bring this to the table because I think that in too many places in this country, the wrong battle is being fought. Anyway, third story is way lighter, guys. It's a positive thing that we love to hear. I thought we were going to need it after talking about those two, but I'm done ignoring things that need to be talked about. But here we go. This also needs to be talked about. Some Good Samaritans in Texas this week saved a baby deer. And you might be thinking, okay, well, that's cool, but that's not unique. Well, they were boating when they saved the baby deer. Brian Ballard and his wife Liz had been out boating on Lake Tyler when they saw something floating in the water. Although they initially suspected it to be a dead fish, they were shocked to find it was actually a fawn. As the Ballards stopped their boat and pulled the lifeless critter onto the deck, a young man named Ashton Bird also noticed the commotion from his boat and decided to like swim over and help. So between the three of them, they actually administered CPR to the fawn, and after several minutes, the fawn revived, and they were able to boat it back to shore and set it free again. So I thought that was cool, and I just wanted to ask you guys a couple of things. You know, what are your thoughts on it, obviously, but what do you do? What would you do if you were out boating and you were thrown on this situation?
Well, I mean, if it was... It's a nice story. Kudos to those three. But here, let's just picture this. We're on a boat. It's me, Marvin, and Richie. Marvin, Richie, take yourself off the mute. And we come across this fawn. Okay. First, you got me on water, and I ain't even supposed to be on water. Okay, because I don't like it.
Me either.
And there's a fawn in the water. And Richie's like, hey, what's that? And we look at it. I can't even pick that thing up by myself. So, Marvin, are you helping me pick this up? Or
I
are we
know
just
what you're looking at me
by?
for.
Are we going to let it float by?
We might have to say a prayer. And
That's what I'm saying, man. Don't be shy to say it. I just say it. I salute it. I'd say, best of luck. Hopefully it's passed out and dead and gone. But if it's not,
better afterlife. There's more waiting in the afterlife for it. It's a better life wherever it's going than here.
Richie, you helping?
No. I mean, honestly, like my thoughts went really dark. My thoughts went, okay, is it dead? Because if it's dead, venison sells for like $45 a pound out here in California. That was kind of my thought. I'd bring it on board if it was dead. I don't.
That's veal.
I don't know if I
isn't
could CPR it. Yeah, it's actually veal. But venison when it's full grown. But anyways, that's not the point. Anyways, I don't know what else to say, man. Like, I don't want to say something that I can't take back, but I'll say this much. Like, that's some very privileged stuff to be able to be like, you know what? I'm gonna save this little fawn's life by administering its CPR. Like, are you a veterinarian? You know what I mean? Like, do you have any understanding of whether that's helping or hurting that poor animal? Like, don't get me wrong. It's great to hear that it worked out okay. Honestly, like, I'm not trying to, that's awesome. But at the same time, you could have hurt this animal even further. You could have killed this animal worse than it was already dying. It is, believe it or not, that could have been, you could have compressed it, its rib cage, and it could have died even slower. You know what I mean? So it's like, I get the idea, and I get that they loved the animals so much and saw something in pain and wanted to help it. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not denigrating that, but I will question why they thought they had the ability to do so, and thought, like, that's a lot of hubris to be like, I'm gonna administer CPR in this thing and it's gonna work. And it did work, and I'm thankful to the animal, lucky that family that it worked out that way. But I think I'd rather just give it one of these, give it a nice little prayer. I hope you do okay, little buddy. If you didn't, you will certainly live in a better place very shortly.
Well, let me just clarify, at least my standpoint of this. I am a swimmer and have always been. Like, when I was a kid, I chased a really expensive fishing lure. I was told to not get caught on something, and I got caught on something, and it went out into the lake. So I was like, but at the same time, while I will swim after a baby deer, I'm not going to give it CPR because I don't know how to do that to a deer. I probably would, Richie's right, get us both killed or the deer killed trying to swim it back to shore, because that's the only thing I could think to do. But I am going to, by nature, just want to help. In the same vein, Richie, to some of the people that you were talking about who won't lift a finger to help their community, but will hop in and try to help a deer, that's not cool either. In my opinion, you need to be able to do the same for both. And that'll do it for news this week. Don't go anywhere. Coming up, we have Game of the Week. We have Dad Joke of the Week, as well as wacky news, entertainment, and Abigail Linhardt. You're listening to the Just Those Best podcast.
Yo, I'm Sahid, an artist out of Dayton, Ohio. You're about to listen to my song, All Time, right here on the Justo's Best podcast.
Your love feels like the greatest of all time. It feels like the greatest of all time. Your love feels like the greatest of all time, all time, all time, the greatest of all time. Baby, loving you is so amazing. Girl, you gotta be the greatest I ever had. Ain't gotta tell you, girl, you know you bad. Damn, baby, give it to me, I need all of that. Yeah, ballin', baby, you deserve a ring. You got something about you, baby, I ain't never seen. Baby, you are more than I could dream of. This has gotta be your real love. Your love feels like the greatest of all time, all time, all time, the greatest of all time. Be 100 arms sprung, girl, you got me any way you want it. There will never be another like you. No, baby girl, you got it. God did a little extra when he made you. Baby, you are more than I could dream of. It's gotta be real. Your love feels like the greatest of all time. All time, all time, the greatest of all time. All time, all time, the greatest of all time. All time, yeah, the greatest of all time.
And now it's time for Dad Joke of the Week with DJ Tony Ray.
All right, it's that time, Dad Joke of the Week. So, fellas, why did the Scarecrow win an award?
Why?
Because he was outstanding in his field. Dad Joke of the Week.
To the 30, to the 20, to the 10, he could go all the way. And now let's send it over to Marvin Scott for our Justo's Best Sports feature, The Wire.
What's happening, folks? Hope you all had a great weekend. Now, when we think of some of the greatest athletes that have retired from their respective sports, a few accomplished names may come to mind. Michael Jordan, Derek Jeter, Peyton Manning. But Ray Ciccarelli? No. Hot off the wires this week, folks, Ray Ciccarelli, an owner, truck driver, said on Instagram that he was ending his racing career after NASCAR announced Wednesday that it would prohibit the display of the Confederate flag. He says in quote, "Well, it's been a fun ride and dream come true, but if this is the direction NASCAR is headed, we will not participate after the 2020 season is over. I don't believe in kneeling during the anthem nor taking people the right to fly whatever flag they love," he wrote in a typo-laden tweet. "I could care less about the Confederate flag, but there are people that do, and it doesn't make them a racist. All you're doing is screwing over one group, catering to another." Ciccarelli, like the Confederacy, never came close to winning. He has a 10th place finish in 18 career races. Bubba Wallace, NASCAR's only full-time black driver, said earlier this week that he wanted the traitor flag removed from races. In 2015, NASCAR legend Dale Earnhardt called the flag offensive to an entire race. It really does nothing for anybody for the flag to be flying there. It belongs in the history books. That's about it, Earnhardt said. Ryan McGee, who covers NASCAR for ESPN and is direct descendant of slave owners, delivered a blistering attack on Hate Not Heritage crowd. My forefathers lost that war. I'm glad they lost it. They were on the wrong side of history. They've all been dead for more than a century, and yet I found myself still working to correct the wrongs. My brother has stood in the same field where their slaves once worked for my family, the man with the deed on the house, holding and weeping with the descendants of the people whom my family once held the deed. So yeah, spare me the arguments about what the flag really means. I know exactly what it means. It means pain. It means anguish. It means embarrassment. It means the most shameful blight on the pages of history of the United States, and that's no small achievement. So I want to kick it around the horn. I want to know how you fellas feel, and you folks out there can leave a comment on Facebook, Instagram, here at Justo's Best. I want to know how you feel too. I'm going to kick it off to Tony. How you feel, man?
I mean, this guy is going to retire after the season, so he's going to still race the season, number one. Number two, he has the right to retire for whatever reason he wants to retire. I just think it's baffling that he wants to retire for this reason. And for NASCAR, doing what they did, I salute them. They're allowed to do whatever they want to do. Just like the flag was there, they can say that they can take the flag down. The statement that you read off about it being in the history, I mean, listen, it's part of our history. We can't erase history. We can't hide or pretend that, that it never happened or what could have happened. It belongs in the history books. People need to know about it. They need to learn from it. But that's the key part right there, is they need to learn from it, so that way we don't, go down these roads again. And that's really the thing with history, is we all say it, right? History repeats itself, but we always end up back following that loop. It's kind of like a racetrack, right? We just keep doing that same thing. No pun intended that we're talking about race. But, hey, he has the right to, believe in that flag, whatever it means to him. Just know that flag means something completely different to a lot of other people. And that's why you have people on the opposite sides when it comes to the American flag. But I'll save that discussion for a different time. But it really is pretty close to home about the Confederate flag and what it stands for one, and what it stands for another. And that's my point.
Absolutely. Seeing how that flag represents a history of brutality towards Black people. And so you really ask yourself a question, what is there to be proud of? If you can't answer that question in its entirety, then it should be banned. That's what I think. On top of that, what do you think, Justin?
Well, man, I'm right there with you guys. I don't even understand. Like, it became part of this weird fashion trend. The Confederate flag did. These, I guess it's just a show of calling people out. These wannabe country boys with their lifted trucks that don't have an inch of dirt on them and have the Confederate flag coming out the back. They probably don't even understand what started or how the Civil War even ended. Like, they don't even know anything about that time period. They're just flying it because they think it represents the cowboy they want to be. Meanwhile, real cowboys are out baling hay and dying all day to try to support their family and the families of their communities. So, like, I don't know. I already have a disdain for the people that fly the flag for the simple fact that they can't even tell me why they're flying the flag or why they support. They're like, well, we're just going to erase that part of history. No, we're going to put it in, like you guys said, put it in history where it belongs, so that it can be learned from. And this guy's hilarious. And didn't NASCAR's like, we don't even know who this dude is. Okay.
That's funny, Justin, because speaking of not knowing who he is before we get to you, Richie, I got some stats I want to throw at you fellas and you folks out there. Here's his racing career summary.
Oh, boy.
Listen up. Here's the number of races entered. 32 races entered, 0 wins, 0 podiums, 0 pole positions, and 0 fastest laps.
Good riddance, dude.
So to me, it occurs to me, fellas, you can't make a 30 for 30 when you're 0 for 30.
NASCAR said they had to Google who he was. They didn't even know who he was. They had to Google who he was. They said, well, good, best of luck to you. Hopefully your 10 followers or 15 followers, they said, go right along with you. That's what NASCAR tweeted.
Chasing participation trophies. Pretty much. That's what that's the legacy that he's leaving behind, y'all. That's what I said at the top of this seg. Think of the greatest athletes you can think of. Think of some of the sports you enjoy watching and some of those players you saw retire from the game and what they actually retired for. They were accomplished. I've never seen anyone retire from something unaccomplished and make a big deal out of it. But Richie, what do you think of this whole thing? Where do you stand? Do you think that the NASCAR did the right thing by banning this flag and this guy retiring in the middle of nowhere?
Yeah, I mean, I think people usually expect me to have more of a hot take than what I'm about to have, but realistically, I've never cared for this flag for obvious reasons. I've never understood why people fly it. I lived in Virginia. I've seen it. They're very much like that heritage, not hate thing, and it's just hilariously disgusting because it's 4 years the Confederacy lasted? I've seen in the alley down there that are probably older than that, honestly. So I don't understand this small period of time and this really disgusting behavior of trying to prop it up as if it was some wonderful thing. And again, it's very challenging in the sense that you run into people who are trying to say, well, my forefathers fought for this. And, I really loved hearing Marvin earlier, and hearing somebody basically say, yeah, they were wrong, this is disgusting. And that's the type of mentality it really should be. Getting into the Civil War on this podcast in this format would take forever. I actually used to write for history magazines, Civil War Times being one of them. So I could really elaborate on this more, but there's really not much purpose behind it right now, because at the end of the day, what this really comes down to is just a bunch of, if they want this to actually continue to fly, then they have no place being there. If you're going to protest NASCAR because it's officially gone, then good riddance. You know what I mean? You have the right to do that, just like NASCAR has the right to ban it. It's not, I don't even understand this belief of something that barely was around. It was around for 4 years, the Confederacy, guys. 1861 to 1865, and that was it. 4 years. That's high school. That's college. That's it. You have a piece of paper once it's done. Fine. You want to keep your flag on your house? So be it. You want to have it fly around? Good luck. But as you can see, the world is changing for those of you who still believe in this flag. These statues are being taken down. Generals. This is it is, for the most part, at the end of the day, completely disgusting behavior. There's really nothing other than in the annals of history, all the Confederacy represents is a bunch of losers who lost. They're on the wrong side of history, and good riddance to them, and good riddance to this flag. And kudos to NASCAR to honestly kind of take that up, because realistically and unfortunately, a large portion of their fan base loves this flag. This is not an issue in any other sport, guys. If we're talking about any other sport, do you think we're having this conversation? So yeah, I honestly do think, to NASCAR's point, it is a bold move to sit here and say we are going to lose a lot of fan base and viewership by doing this, but we understand what we're doing and why it's the right thing to do. So kudos to NASCAR. I don't even know this guy's name. I know you said it 5 times. I don't really care. Who cares? He's a loser. He's never going to win. Yeah, sometimes you just have to have jobbers, people who just kind of show up and lose, to fill the spots. But you can find a guy that can do this just fine. It isn't going to talk about something ridiculous and isn't going to be absurd and, he's going to protest on his morality. Well, guess what, man? You sucked at this, and you're probably going to suck at whatever else you do. So good riddance.
The 2016 NFL season was filled with controversy. As you all know, players were kneeling during the national anthem, not over the flag. That divisive issue may be at the center of the 2020 season as well as things continue. President Donald Trump said on Twitter Saturday that it looked like the NFL was headed in the wrong direction, where players would not be standing for the national anthem, suggesting that he would not watch games if that were the case. He says, in quote, "It looks like the NFL is heading in the wrong direction. I will not be watching this season. What a shame." So I wanted to ask you folks out there kicking around the horn, how do you guys feel?
I mean, Donald Trump not watching football doesn't faze me. What actually strikes me is the fact that, you know, people still don't see why Cap kneeled during the national anthem. That we're still talking about it 4 years later. It just baffles me, and I'm not even hurt. I'm not mad. It's just the reality. And that's why it's so hard for there to be change in the world that we live in today, is because people like Donald Trump voicing his opinion about something that he has no idea about. He is steering the narrative away from what it really is about, maybe because it's not comfortable, maybe because he doesn't want to, maybe because, you know, he'd rather, you know, deal with other things than inequality and unjust acts. I could give two shits. I don't care. They can kneel for the American flag. They can stand. They can sit. They can do whatever they want to do, because what's going on in the world we live in has to change. The way people are being treated has to change. That's what this is all about. This has nothing to do with anything else. We've said it, I don't know how many times. Different athletes, different people, different sources, whether it's on a radio or a song or a movie, we've stated it. This is not about a flag. This is not about the troops that fight for our country. This is about inequality. And why stand for something when you can't be looked at as an equal? That's what this is about. Stop directing this somewhere else. It's bullshit. Donald Trump, I'm watching the NFL, and I'm sure a whole bunch of other people will too, because your mindset and your thought process is way out in left field. So just watch baseball or something that's American to you, because the NFL is not American anymore.
Right. You don't have to tune in.
Correct.
You don't have to. You don't have to. You don't have to join the American people in solidarity. You don't have to do that. Continue to use the flag as to cover up racial injustice in this country. Richie, what do you think?
Yeah, I once again kind of try to do this very quickly. The national anthem has, to me, never really represented true patriotism in a sporting event. Let me be very specific here. And particularly in football. So just a little background for those of you who are still thinking that this is somehow bad and this is wrong and this is disrespectful. Little known fact, 2009 was the first year the players actually stood out on the field during the national anthem. They used to be in the locker room. Now this goes back to the 1940s, and they did always play the national anthem before kickoff. But let me say that again, one more time. They used to be in the locker room. Now, do you really think those athletes were standing attentively with their hand over their heart while this national anthem was going on every single game? And if you do, that's cute. I don't know how else to put that, but the reality is no, they're probably sitting, they're probably getting ready, they're probably putting their cleats on, etc. Is that disrespectful to the flag? If you didn't see that act, but you know now that this was probably happening, is that disrespectful? So who are you to be concerned with what's disrespectful to the flag? Because the Department of Defense paid the NFL for this as a recruiting tactic. They spent $6 million per year between 2012 through 2015. And that is why they spent the money. Literally did use that. These senators have discussed this. It's a recruiting tactic because guess what? America's pastime is not baseball. It's football, buddy. Sorry, Donald. It's football. And that is why they pay that money. And that is why the players have to stand out there and do that. Let me repeat that just one last time. These players could have chosen before 2009 to come out and stand and salute. It's not like they were saying they couldn't. It was a voluntary thing. They could absolutely do that. Did you ever see that? Any of you? 1980s, no, it didn't happen. It did not happen because they needed to prepare for a game. But because of money, we decided that they're going to prep a little earlier and then they're going to stand out there and do their due diligence. And if you find what I just said disrespectful, I really don't care, quite frankly, because it's not disrespectful. What you're thinking is disrespectful. That's the reality. Oh. And honestly, you want to talk about disrespect? 2018, Fergie sang the national anthem. That was the most disrespectful thing I've ever seen in my entire life. And y'all worried about how somebody be kneeling or sitting. No. And if you haven't heard that, I implore you, audience, YouTube, Fergie singing the national anthem during the NBA All-Star game, okay? That is disrespectful because guess what? That song does mean something and it should be sung properly, and she can sing properly, but she tried to church it up is how I like to call that. She tried to inflect too much. She tried to go hit high notes and low notes and hit her vibrato. Like, it was absurd. And to me, that is disrespectful, folks. Not trying to draw attention to your abilities, singing our nation's anthem. It is because, again, Colin Kaepernick, to clarify in this difference here, was not trying to draw attention to himself. That was not the goal of his protest. His protest was, I will not stand and salute something that doesn't represent me and the injustice that it leads to for my people. Completely different. Fergie was doing it for attention for herself. Colin is doing it for attention for a problem. Massive difference. And if you don't understand that, I don't know what to tell you. But to Donald Trump and anyone else like Mike Pence who walked away while the anthem was playing, how is that not disrespectful to you crazy folks at home that actually think Donald Trump is right? How is that not disrespectful? The anthem's playing and he turns his back on the flag and walks away. That's not disrespectful? So I don't know what to tell you guys if you still think Donald's okay, or if you're in that narrative that the NFL finally kind of understanding what Colin was trying to do and finally saying, we are wrong, we will allow this, and it was the wrong call in 2016. If you think that's a problem, I implore you to think about what I just told you from the statistics, from the Fergie song, quite frankly, and the thing with Pence and Trump. Because that's the reality, guys. There's a lot of things wrong with the country. And I tell you what, people kneeling while the national anthem is being played is not one of them. I don't care about the Defense Department's money. I don't care about how you think it represents the flag to you, because he's doing something for himself and his people. And if it offends you, then honestly, tough shit.
Completely agree, Richie. Like you said, tough shit. And you couldn't have said that louder for those that are in the back. Here at Justo's Best, we're not in any way, shape, or form disrespecting the flag. But what you just heard Richie say, you just heard Tony say, wasn't about the flag at all. It's about it's what Donald Trump and many more people that have that thought process like them are standing up for. And it's like Richie said, if you can sit there like we all did through Fergie's national anthem, which she completely destroyed, which wasn't about the flag at all, which we completely ignored her music and made it about the flag, we can all make it about what it's really about. Racial injustice. Justin, what do you think?
Well, something that Tony was talking about kind of sparked a thought process in my head that I guess I want to share. First and foremost, I don't care whether or not our president watches the football. I'm quite frankly tired of seeing him discussing his opinions in that matter on Twitter. It just seems immature to me. Like, there's so many things that we count on the president to be doing. And I turn on the news and I see all of the problems going on in this country that he's supposed to be leading. And he's got time to sit around and make tweets about football and tweets about how he feels on this stuff. I mean, you're the president of the United States. You've got a job to do. Go do it. And when that's done, then come back and tell me that you're not going to watch football. And I still won't care. But here's the thing. Tony was talking about the fact that this is change and people are having a hard time, with change, which is always the case, older generations in specific, not saying that there's anything wrong with that, but there's just things that have been the same way for a long time. People can't handle the fact that it's changing. Kneeling during the national anthem is not negating the national anthem. Like Richie was talking about, all the other people that have been caught on tape right in front of everybody, just either, like you said, Fergie, not worrying about paying the country homage, but just trying to jazz it up as best she can. You see that all the time, and it ends up in really, like, I've even seen videos of major stars not even hitting all the words. That's the point. It is a tradition that we stand and remove our hats. But that tradition is starting to represent something that just has to change and is changing. So for you to sit here and discriminate against the people that are accepting the change and trying to further that notion because it has to come, then you're being disrespectful. They didn't go in the locker room, they like they would have back before they had to be out there. And thank you, Richard, for bringing that to light. I didn't even know that was a thing, that they have to be, should they come out? I think everybody at the beginning of the game, I think that's a cool tradition, but I don't have a problem with Kaepernick or anybody kneeling because I understand what he's doing it for. And one of you guys told me before the show that all came from a veteran who tried to say, hey, don't sit down during the national anthem. If you want to be respectful but still support this movement and get people to see that you're supporting this movement, at least be respectful and be out there. Just take a knee. You take a knee in football in general for a lot of, taking a knee actually has some significance within the sport. You take a knee when the coach has something to say. You take a knee when somebody's hurt. There's a lot of respect in taking a knee. And I don't know. I just think throwing shade on it is more disrespectful than taking the knee itself. And I honestly could not care what the hell Donald Trump watches. He doesn't have time to watch TV right now.
I think that's where we're all at, fellas. We could care less. Folks out there, we probably care less if he watches the games or not. There are plenty of other things out there to watch that are not sports. Sports is for people that actually want to come together and want to unify, all for the same cause of watching their two respective teams clash and play to win the game. That's what it's about. And all the while, there's an American flag. There's this entity that exists that is for respect and reverence. But if a man kneels, he has the right to kneel for racial injustice, just like a man has the right to kneel in church or to kneel in any other situation that calls for it. So I think that's where we're all at. And I want to thank the athletes out there all across all sports that are using their platforms to step up and speak out. We want to thank you on Justo's Best for doing that. I want to thank Bubba Wallace here at Justo's Best for his incredible bravery and courage for coming out and wanting that flag banned. And hopefully that example is taken across all sports to eradicate any form of racism, because we're done with it. We're simply tired. And we're, like I said, we're looking forward to having sports this summer. And you folks out there, I encourage you all, especially, to continue to use your platforms like these athletes. Step up and speak out. They're leading the way. And that's hot off the wire as I have it this week. I'm Marvin Scott.
This is Richie Phillips from East Oakland. You're now listening to Justo's Best Podcast.
Hey guys, this is Tony Watson. You are about to hear a clip from my brand new quarantine comedy album, Filthy Idiot.
I don't know. I believe that I'm a much better driver when I know that there are drugs in my trunk. And that kind of got me thinking, imagine how great I'd be if instead of drugs, I had a body in there. I'd be really good. Just like Paul Walker in all those movies, you know? You know, second thought, that's probably not the best example. His car had 2 dead bodies in it. You know, some people might say that joke's too soon, but I think it's too fast, too furious. You can't argue with that.
Wait, what? That's right, the wait what story of the week. Black woman fights for the Confederate flag and says slavery was a choice. Wait, what? I'm okay that she fights for a flag that has many meanings to a bunch of people, but I'm a little confused on being a choice. First, they were sold by blacks to whites from Africa. Some weren't even sold. Some were taken. What do you think? It was a cruise vacation that they went on that went wrong? Second, they were told what to do, when to do it, how to do it, and where they could do it. Third, they weren't considered a person. They were property. Last time I checked, property doesn't choose not to be property. Fourth, if it was a choice, then why fight for freedom or have rebellions? I can keep going, but I choose not to because that's my choice. I'll end with a quick story. Harriet Tubman's gun. She carried a revolver and was not afraid to use it. The gun was for protection from the ever-present slave catchers and their dogs. However, she also threatened to shoot any escaped slaves who tried to turn back on the journey. Why? Because to Harriet Tubman, she'd rather you die than to choose to go back because you were scared. And also, she was smart because you probably give away where they were going, and that would jeopardize the safety of the remaining group. My fellow black lady, I have no problem, like I said, with you wanting to fight for the Confederate flag, but I do have a problem with you saying that slavery was a choice, because I don't think anybody would choose that. And if they did, nah, I don't think they would. So you made the wait what story of the week. Marvin, Richie, Justo, tell me what you think about this lady. We'll kick it off to Richie.
Well, I don't know where to begin. I think the best way to describe this is when I heard Kanye West make the same claim, as a matter of fact. It's just so disheartening to have somebody, and this is an example when we discuss privilege, actually. I think this is the best way to describe this. This is somebody who's so privileged and living a different life. And even though equality is still not here in existence, for her to not understand the plight of her ancestors, and by implying it's a choice, just shows the lack of wherewithal, the lack of knowledge, and the ignorance, quite frankly, to believe something so ludicrous like that. I think slavery is something that I really don't want to get into in this topic, in the sense of we could have 20 shows on slavery and the issues with it. But I find it extremely disturbing for someone to basically just take a brush and just try to revisionistly paint over all of this and just say, I'm okay, so I didn't have to do this. Therefore, you chose that life, and it's just disgusting. It's shameful. It's painful. It's just not humanistic, honestly, to not have any empathy, understanding, or knowledge. I've said ignorance already, and it's truly an ignorant belief in an ignorant human being. And regardless of her skin tone, anybody who would think any person would want to choose to be a slave just doesn't belong like on this earth, quite frankly. I wish her nothing but the worst, quite frankly. I hope nothing but bad things happen to this person. I hope she falls and trips on her face. I hope her ankle breaks. I hope all the tendons in her knees snap. I hope she has arthritis, tendonitis. What am I missing? What's the hand thing? I can't even remember. Carpal tunnel. I hope she gets it all simultaneously. I hope she keeps vision in one eye but not the other, so she has no depth perception. So when she's crossing the road, she gets hit but not killed, so she can kind of suffer a little longer. I don't know what else to say other than I hope nothing but bad things happen to her. And to those of you out here who don't agree with me, that's totally fair. You're probably a better person than I, but I only wish awful things to awful human beings.
Yeah, I'm just going to say she should be glad that she wasn't on the Underground Railroad with Harriet Tubman, because somebody would have got shot, because she definitely would have chose to go back, I guess, or maybe not. I don't know. Who knows what her choice would have been.
She thinks it's a choice. She probably would have chose to stay.
Yeah, she likes it down there in that misery. Anyway, Justo, tell me your thoughts.
I mean, I can't say anything that you guys haven't already said. It's ignorance. Ignorance once again. It's hard to even say it's disappointing now. Honestly, watching social media, watching the news, watching people in general, it's just crazy. Ignorance at its worst.
Thank you. Marvin, I know you got something to say, because you're the person that I shared this story with, and we kind of went back and forth a little bit. So go ahead and enlighten us.
Well, there were just a few emotions that ran through my mind when I first heard this story and when we talked about it briefly. I was shocked. I was angry. But then I skipped those emotions, and then I got right to contentment again, because I thought to myself, if she really thinks that waving that flag will make her feel more accepted by white people, she's gravely mistaken. Because all that, what Richie wanted her to go through is nothing compared to the pain that she's been so subconscious about waving that flag, the pain that's behind it, the pain that she doesn't even understand what she's putting herself through. Let me explain something to y'all folks out there, you guys. There's a Willie Lynch letter. So the fact that she's waving that flag makes me think of a couple of things. She's forgetting the fact that women and children were torn from each other during slavery, families ripped from each other, being told what and what not to do on a daily basis. And I'm not talking in terms of doing physical work. I'm talking about basic human needs and when to do it. That was slavery. Slavery was not a choice when you make people go out there and pick cotton. We can get into that all day. But the fact remains is that she is completely oblivious to the hatred and bigotry that flag represents, that she as a Black woman should feel embarrassed. We're embarrassed, Black people, for her. And we're compassionate and empathetic, and we'll be willing to accept her back with open arms. But until then, continue waving that flag and you stand on that other side of what we're trying to fight for and be a part of the problem. So we're ready to accept you back. Because that, to me, in itself, is just pure ignorance and self-hatred that's pointed inward. And I feel so sorry and embarrassed for her and for her family and for anybody else that brought her into this world that made her that clueless. I'm done.
Yes, you are, my friend. Said so eloquently. I'll tell a quick story. I know I had all that stuff before, and I don't want this to run long, but there was an African prince that was going to become king, and he was captured and taken to a place where he could be sold to American settlers that voyaged all the way back from Africa to the United States. And he lived as a slave in America, the great nation that it is, but was a prince in Africa, all because of the mindset of an individual who wanted to be the next in line. So you tell me, lovely lady, if that's a choice. And I'll end it there.
And now time for Game of the Week on the Justo's Best podcast.
Just a few short weeks ago, planet Earth called upon Justo's Best to assemble a team to save it from certain damnation. Giant Furbies. This morning, another world needs your help. Marvin, Richie, Tony, Justo. The cartoon Disney universe is under attack by the same Furbies that plagued Earth. Assemble a team and do it quickly, for these Furbies have doubled in size and are twice as fast. Now, draft your teams of 5 and do it quick. Help them, Justo's Best. You're their only hope.
Wow.
You know, I wasn't ready for double everything, but I'm looking forward to fighting the Furbies again.
Yeah, but that was fun last time.
Bring it on.
All right, so we're going to do a draft. We brought up the random draft generator, and Marvin got the first round pick. So Marvin's going to start us off. You do have to pick it from, we're drafting a team of 5. We need Disney characters, so it could be Disney or Pixar for the cartoon universe. So we're just going to, for the sake of not having too many to pick from, exclude Marvel and Pirates and stuff like that for now.
Okay.
But, so Marvin, you got the first round pick. Who you taking?
We'll take Peter Pan.
Peter Pan. Off the table. Off the table.
All right, so I'm next. So I'm going to take, let's see, I'm going to take King Triton.
King Triton.
That's a good pick. That's a good pick.
Richie?
I am next. I am taking Zero to Hero, Hercules.
Oh, okay.
The demigod.
It should prove pretty helpful. I'm going to take Simba. Adult Simba, if we have to specify.
You get the next pick as well, Justo.
Okay. So, I like this whole last pick thing. Let's see. We got Simba.
Oh,
Sully,
yeah.
Okay. I can remember. For my next pick, I'm going to take Sully from Monsters, Inc. I think he'll be helpful.
Okay, not bad. I am sticking with my Titanic people, and I'm going with the genie from Aladdin. He's extremely powerful.
Dang. The genie has been taken.
That's a good one. I'm going to take, let's see. Man, you took the genie from Aladdin. I wanted to take the genie. Let's do Big Hero 6.
Ooh.
Oh, you're going to do Baymax? Okay.
Yep, Baymax.
Oh, no. Baymax is good. We jumped out a window. All right.
Marvin?
Marvin's up next.
I'm going to take Bagheera, the Jungle Book.
I like it. Okay. I am going to take Hades from the Hercules series as well. Hades.
He's building a strong team here.
Then he goes, you, Justo, then Marvin, then me.
Okay. I think I'm going to take Maui from Moana. For sure. He's also another demigod. Thanks for the idea there, Richie.
Marvin?
I'm going to take Shere Khan.
Ooh.
I like it. He's going very villainous creatures.
I'm going to take Maleficent.
Ooh.
And then for my other, because I have the number one pick, and then Richie goes second. For my other one, I'm going to pick the Fairy Godmother.
Okay. All right, so it's my pick. I feel like I have a pretty stacked team, but it's just getting stronger. I choose Elsa from Frozen.
I think I'm going to go with Pocahontas because I don't have any stealthy going on right now.
Okay.
But she's probably going to try to reason with him. That might be a problem.
Yeah. Marvin?
I'll take Scar.
Oh.
Sticking with the animals. Let's jump.
Badass animals, man.
All right. For the last round, to make it fair, we all had number one picks. Justo, since it's your game, you get the last number one pick, then Marvin, then me, then Richie.
For some reason, if they can get along, I feel like Maui and Ursula might be able to pull off some damage. I'm going to go with Ursula.
Good choice. She has been on the board for a long time.
Yeah.
Marvin?
I'm going to go with Jafar.
Good choice. He's also been on the board for a very long time.
Yeah, I forgot.
Yeah, that was going to potentially be my last pick, but actually it's not on mine.
Yeah.
I don't think it's been said, but I might be wrong. I'm going to go with Mulan.
No.
It has not been said.
Right, nice.
Fabulous pick. And with my final pick, it's actually my favorite Disney villain, not because this villain is memorable or strong by any means, but he has eaten 5 dozen eggs a day, and he is Gaston.
Okay, so we all have the teams. I'll do a quick recap because what we're going to do, since this is the season finale, and we have, I'll clarify again, we have 3 weeks in between our next launch. But we're going to post this on YouTube. You can vote. On Facebook, you can vote in the comments. And then otherwise, if you're having a hard time getting to us, you can email us at justthosebestlive@gmail.com. You're going to vote for your team, your favorite team that you think will defeat these Furbies over in the Disney cartoon universe. So to quick recap, Team DJ Tony Ray, we have King Triton, Baymax, Maleficent, the Fairy Godmother, and Mulan.
Yes.
We have Team Richie, Hercules, Genie, Hades, Elsa, and Gaston. Team Marvin, we have Peter Pan, Bagheera, Shere Khan, Scar, and Jafar. And then my team will be Simba, Sully, Maui, Pocahontas, and Ursula. So we will be anxious to see what your guys' thoughts are on which of our teams wins that race, and we'll announce the winner of that on the season 2 premiere. Consequently, I have a game for you folks, the listeners. We want you to put your teams with the remaining Disney characters. So we've already taken the teams that we've taken. Now we want you to make a team. If you make a team and you post it on the comments, you'll have a chance to be one of the special guests on Justo's Best Season 2. We will vote on the teams that we get submitted, and the team that comes out as our favorite will get a hold of you and we'll get you booked to be a special guest on Season 2 of the Justo's Best podcast. And that does it for Game of the Week.
When I was a lad, I ate 4 dozen eggs every morning to help me get large. And now that I'm grown, I eat 5 dozen eggs.
So I'm roughly the size of a boy.
What's up? This is Joshua Scales. You're about to listen to my new single, Loco, on the Justo's Best podcast.
Loco. I be on go-go. Say it ain't so-so. My God, you should know, no. You say that's a no-no. But how do you know, though? They say I be snappy. Like I got a GoPro. I'm taking these shots, so turn up the notch. Give it what we got. Just look in my eyes, not letting you slide. I came here to rock. Let me do my job. Then we gon' go home. No wait for the phone. Just send me alone. I'll throw you a bone. But please watch your tone. They so got the throne. I'm letting you know I'm in a new mode. Keep up with the flow. I would never fold. Beating these souls. What I was told. I'm going for gold. I'm feeling too cold. It never gets sold. I'm doing the most. I don't mean to boast. These rappers are toast. They wanting to smoke. I hope they don't joke. Cause I ain't going loco. 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 I had to go crazy. Was feeling too lazy. But I cannot let that happen. I cannot let them face me. So you tryna count sheep, and you tryna stay asleep. But it's time to go, G. Still running at full speed. Cause I got the answer. I got the real thing. I haven't set free. God is the boss. We dripping the sauce. I'm done with the old me. Just pray that you ready. Cause these are the facts. I'm coming with stats. I'm not looking back. It's time to attack. My king is my dad. I'm not feeling bad. It's time that I grab. My spot is my chance. I'm doing my dance. I just had to spaz. I just got a blast. I'm coming in last. I'm pressing the gas. I'm making me laugh. You mad? That's so sad. It's how I react. I'm taking it back. You still coming for me? Where they at?
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, it is my pleasure to introduce to you, for your weekly dose of entertainment news, give it up for the one, the only, Richie Phillips.
Hey everybody, this is Entertainment with Richie again. I would love to cover topics that I find more lighthearted and fun. I'd love to go over the PlayStation story and the Xbox that's about to be released. I'd love to talk about HBO Max like we have been recently. I'd love to talk about Tom Cruise, but once again, we're in situations where we need to cover what's important right now. And so the first thing I wanted to talk to you guys about is the Grammys. So let me preface some of this. The Grammys had made a change, and this was planned back in February and March, well before George Floyd. But let me just get into some of this change, and this is courtesy of Variety. The Grammy Awards will cease using the term urban in its award languages as part of the latest round of annual changes to its rules and guidelines. So one of the things they're changing with that is they essentially want to completely keep things transparent and avoid terms that could be systemically racist. So let me read off some of the new categories now. Best Urban Contemporary Album will now be Best Progressive R&B Album. This category is intended to highlight albums that include more progressive elements in R&B that may include samples of elements of hip-hop, rap, dance, and electronic music. It may also incorporate production elements found in pop, etc. Best Rap Sung Performance will now be Best Melodic Rap Performance. So this is for recognizing solo and collaborative performances. But here's where I find this interesting. Because as we just said, the goal was to take urban out of the Grammys. But under the Latin field, they are changing the Latin field. They are keeping the word urban, they're just separating it. So there used to be a category of Latin rock and alternative. So that used to have urban in it. It was Latin rock, urban, or alternative. So now it's just going to be Latin rock or alternative. And they're moving urban to Latin pop or urban. And the reasoning behind this to them is to allow the Latin hip hop community to have a name, but differentiating it from the hip hop community. So I'd love to hear your take on that, but I'm just going to read one thing real quick. Asked why urban has been a problematic term, is there a reason it's being changed? They said it's something we've been discussing for a couple years, and the term has been a hot button for a while. A lot of creators and people in the genre didn't like the description, and they feel that it pigeonholes styles of music. So the constituents brought it to us in the form of a proposal. We listened, we voted, and we approved as asked by the people in the community. So now they want to have modern R&B and hybrid style recordings to have flexibility in the category and not be reliant on the term urban. So guys, I'd like for you to just open up the panel. We'll just have a quick discussion.
I've always been against the term, to be honest, in terms of how hip hop and rap is being labeled as urban music. And I feel that them removing it from the Grammys they're doing the right thing, because I think that the systemic racism behind hip hop, behind rap, they need to furthermore. That's been prevalent in music for years, and it's taken all this time, up to a couple of years ago, for them to decide that's not a term that should be in the Grammys today. That they're going to remove that. That they're finally. That's my concern, is that they've finally have gotten to that point now when 20, 30 years ago, when hip hop was still trying to find its footing through its message, they overlooked it. They overlooked it then. So it couldn't have just took George Floyd. And it's like, it touches on what we talked about earlier in the show. Is this coming from a place of sincerity where you're removing this term? Because if you knew this a long time ago, why is it taking so much time now to remove it? I understand the process behind, voting and deciding what kind of terminology you're going to use when describing awards, and I'm not for it, and I'm all for removing that word in its entirety from the awards, because there's no specificity in that. When you say urban music or urban award, like that in itself, that's a marginalization of the music industry, seen as how it's predominantly Black hip hop industries. That's how I feel about it.
I mean, let's be honest, black music hasn't been respected by the Grammys. And that's according to multiple artists' viewpoints, courtesy of CNN Entertainment. P. Diddy said it best, and I'm going to paraphrase this. Black music has never been respected. And it's with music, it's with film, it's with sports, it's around the world. So, many felt the lack of diversity in many cases result in the culture that leans towards exclusion rather than inclusion. And Richie, when you read the story, it kind of struck a nerve because here we go again. They're trying to do something right, but in reality, they're going to infuriate a lot of people because they're still excluding another race. That's what I took from the story that you just read. It's nice that they want to change the word urban for the black community, but I think it would be fair if you just strict it completely. 100%.
Yeah, Tony, before I get into Justin, I do want to just briefly make my comments as well. What Marvin said and how you feel, I'm right in that middle. I completely agree in the terms of how black music and, quite frankly, culture has been vulturized and picked apart and not appreciated, even though secretly it is. The reality that I find myself in is like watching and understanding you have a community that is equally considered this urban. And urban is such a blanket term, right? You can view it as hip hop or you can view it as dance music. So for the Grammys to be so lazy in there saying, okay, well, we don't want to offend the black community anymore, so we're going to pull this word. However, for Latinos, we still don't know how to differentiate the hip hop portion of Latino music with dance music. So we're going to keep urban for you. It really bothers me. It really bothers. Like, that's just kind of crazy. They did a half thing correct, in my opinion. And again, yes, it's challenging. Urban, that word, which it should have never existed in the first place, that's the problem. Like, whether you're Latino, whether you're white, whether you're black, whether you're Asian, it doesn't matter. If you're a hip hop artist, you should be in the hip hop category. And if it's more pop and dance, you should be pop and dance. And if you want to segregate and continue the Latino art and go for that, fine. But why not call it Latino pop/dance? And why not call it Latino hip hop if that's the case? I don't understand them to maintain that word for the Latino community specifically, because I'm sure the Latino community doesn't appreciate that word in that sense either. And all they did was shuffle the award so it could be more precise. So it's not just pop and then quote unquote urban, rock, and alternative. Now you're kind of blending two and two together because they want to maintain two awards for the Latino community specifically. And I have no problem with deviating and having that and having awards for communities. But I think that word, again, like I just said, could have had more precision. They could be more direct about it. And there's nothing wrong with just saying hip hop or pop dance music. And quite frankly, that's what it should be. It should be pop and hip hop dance. And then it should be rock and alternative as they segregated it. Because that's generally the type of, you tend to be when you listen to music, either in those categories. I'm not saying you can't listen to hip hop and rock, and that's like counterintuitive, but generally speaking, the radio usually has pop plus hip hop together, and then they have rock and alternative together. So that's what they should call it, in my opinion. So Justin, what's your take?
I'm right there with you. I think that the genres exist, so like these little subgenres. I mean, because if you're it goes back to the discussion of whether or not we're talking culture or color. You know what I mean? Like, if you're gonna set aside an award for a particular culture, then there's music from particular cultures from all over the world that could compete for the best in that genre. You know what I mean? So I think you're right. I think pop, hip hop, rock, alternative, make it so that everybody's competing on the equal playing field for the genre that their music fits into, regardless of the culture that's behind the music. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I totally understand, Justo. I think in an ideal world, we'll get there. I think the inequality discussion we had previously, that's kind of the concern. Because you look at something like the Grammys, which is realistically an American award system, and then you try to factor in, like, for instance, who's your favorite hip hop artist? We don't need to necessarily answer. Let's say you say Kendrick Lamar, right? You're a very thoughtful man, and you go Kendrick Lamar, and I go Bad Bunny. You might not know who Bad Bunny is, but I promise you, he is one of the most successful artists in the world. And that is predominantly why these things kind of exist, because it's an American award ceremony. But they understand that there's other cultures that they're not deviating to, and they're just so prominent in America now that they're doing these things. So from my perspective, that's why these things exist in that sense, is that because at the end of the day, you may struggle to say, is Kendrick Lamar more successful than Bad Bunny? What do you define as success? What, etc. So I agree with you, and I would love to see awards come down to it at the end of the day like that. I'd love to see Bad Bunny be competing with Kendrick Lamar and whoever else is a successful artist in this moment for that, the sake of this argument. But I don't think we're there yet. I don't think we're in a situation where the people who watch the Grammys, not the artists themselves, but the people who watch the Grammys, understand music or accept music and listen and have their ears open to all these cultures right now and experiences. So for the Grammys, I feel like are attempting to put a spotlight on these, for these, their audience, a larger community that they don't necessarily have recognized or listened to.
I guess, and yeah, I understand that. And I think it's good. My thing, it's just another thing that's being done in response to the events that are happening, it seems like. And it's like, is this coming from, like Marvin was saying, where is this coming from? Is this coming from the heart, or is this coming from guilt? Is this coming from, making sure that, hey, I want to make sure that my company's not labeled as one of these racist companies? Like, to me, that seems like a guilty conscience. That seems like, but I don't know if that's accurate to the Grammys, but, I'm just saying, like, so many of these things can be almost as relevant to me as the Breonna law as far as actually moving forward. I don't know.
No, I'm 100% with you. And let me say it for you. It's super racist. Like, there's nothing about, like, it's racist. It's not about being topical. Like, think about it. Like, what I just mentioned from my perspective, this is why it's racist to me. You're saying urban isn't okay for black people now because of what's been happening, but urban is okay for Hispanics. That's, right, to me, the definition of not a genuine thought, but more realistically a political goal and aspiration for the Grammys themselves. So, to your point, I agree with you. It's divisive, and it's causing more, like, separation and segregation than inclusiveness. But that's why I think abolishing the word itself in its totality, not just for segments of cultures, and that's what needs to change. So hopefully, Grammys, you guys are listening. I think we're going to move on from this subject at this point, because it sounds like all of us are on the same page here, that realistically, systemic racism is everywhere. This is just another example of, quote unquote, trying to do the right thing, but realistically failing miserably. So Grammy board, please take a look at this for next year. I believe you could be more precise. Give the Latinos the same respect you finally have given the black artists. Everyone deserves the same platforms and the same awards with the same titles. There doesn't need to be extra words, different things that define us. We're all the same. Maybe there's different avenues, maybe there's different listeners, and that's why these awards exist, but let's keep everything the same. And unfortunately, guys, I have something even more serious to talk about than that. I had already shown you guys the videos, and for those of you at home and listening, we might have this up, a link to it, but regardless, you can easily find it. There's a comedian, his name is Jay Farrow, used to be on SNL, incredibly funny guy, does great impersonations, really good at Barack Obama, Chris Rock, Jay-Z. He does it all. He's really good, really super talented. So recently on his Instagram, I don't recall the exact date, maybe a few days ago, it was very recent when I noticed it, he had posted a video And I'm not going to get into the video. I hope you guys will watch it, but let me just try to summarize what happened. What happened to the poor gentleman that he posted a video is he was jogging on Ventura Boulevard. And this is around April. 4 officers stopped him and ordered him to get on the ground. They had guns drawn on the gentleman. So he complied. He moved out of the way. They handcuffed him. The police officer did put a knee to the back of his neck as well. Now, it was significantly not nearly the same length that happened to George Floyd. But the point is the exact same process happened to this man as well. And, this man happened to be famous. And what's ironic about this whole situation is this wasn't even reported, right? None of us, and the guys will get into this, but none of us heard about this story until Jay posted this very recently on Instagram. He posted a video. And I do not want to take away from his words. I hope and implore you to go check out his Instagram and check out his video so you can really see the message that he has about this. It's not just glorifying the situation for him. It was about recognizing to him. And I don't agree with all of his beliefs, because one thing he did say that I will mention right now that I don't agree with is he said it was the first time he experienced racism. And I really think if he were to re-record that and rethink about that, he'd reassess what he said there. But bottom line is, he tried to give everyone an example of how this could happen to anyone. He's a law-abiding citizen. He's famous, maybe not A-lister, but he's an incredible comedian, very funny, and once again, black man at the wrong place at the wrong time. And he was just so happening to be fortunate that he was famous enough that they didn't just shoot him. So, gentlemen, you've seen the video. I'd like to just kind of do your live reactions. You've had about 5 minutes, maybe, to kind of really digest what was seen. So, Justo, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, man, that was a tough, heartfelt video. Jay Farrell is one of my favorite comedians. I love impressionists. DJ Tony Ray and I have a good time doing our impressions and voices. And if you haven't checked out any of his career, as a side note, you should, because he's hilarious. If you need a short example of it, there's a video somewhere of him on the Steve Harvey show where he nails a bunch of impressions, and you'll get a good picture for it. But yeah, man, that's crazy. It shows in just plain view what's going on. It really just doesn't even matter who you are. It matters who the guy with the badge is and what his agenda is, and how thorough he is and how well trained he is, and all the components that we've talked about over and over again. But it's sickening. Once again, as I said before, I can't relate, but I have been stopped, arrested, detained for fitting a description. The Dayton RTA system had released a video because they thought I matched the description to somebody the police were looking for. I lived in Miamisburg, Ohio. If you don't know it, it's suburban, area. I lived in the Conifers, which is like in the nice little apartment sector. I rode my normal buses home from work, and as soon as I got off the last bus and was heading into the Conifers, I just got surrounded, tackled, and detained for matching a description. And so that's the only relation I have to what he went through. And that happened to me, when I was like 19 years old, and that scared the crap out of me, because I'm like, well, thank God I don't commit crimes that result in this kind of police brutality, because I don't like being tackled by somebody I'm not allowed to fight against. I don't like to be slammed onto the ground and forcibly cuffed in front of my mom, who's screaming, "What the hell are you doing?" So again, like I said way back in episode 6, it's not, for me, it's circumstantial. It's happened once in my lifetime, and the thought of that being a fear every time you leave the door, because of how many examples of that being race driven continue to surface, and this just goes to show it really, if it was about the person, if it was about the individual situation, it probably wouldn't have happened to Jay Farrow. Because I watched the video, I watched the security footage. He was just jogging. He stopped because he saw cops approaching. He looked past himself to see, you'll see it if you see the video, everything, it's crazy to me. The fact that it happened on that level, and they're busted, you know what I mean? It's sickening.
very good term from what I witnessed, at least with that video. Marvin, what do you think?
Oh, I think that he sent a very powerful message to our people. Don't wait for racism to hit you. Don't wait to experience it to educate yourself or to learn more about it or to start feeling sorry for our own because it hasn't happened to you yet. And I think that's something that can be really highlighted because I've seen the course of the past 5 years, a lot of Black celebrities have come out. For example, Lil Wayne, I don't want to say a lot, but a few have come out and said they never experienced any form of racism. And I want to highlight what Richie said. They did. They just didn't realize it. They just weren't aware enough to understand that it was systemic in their lives in some kind of way, that they weren't aware of how that person looked at them. They weren't aware how law enforcement was targeting them every day that they woke up. So, and I think that is what we can take away from that these stories don't go reported every day. Cops harass us, harass people every day, bad cops. I don't want to say cops because it's not everyone, but we're not talking about all cops. We're talking about bad cops that do this to people every day. And I think that this is very important for all of us to understand, for our people to understand. It doesn't matter how successful you are, or how famous you are, how much money you have, and matter how popular you are amongst your friends, how cool you think you are. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you still have to be aware of the racial injustices in this country and that cops and people are still going to marginalize you for being a minority in this country. It has nothing to do with what you have or what you do. What happened to Jay Furrow was a classic example of that. And that's sad. That it doesn't matter that he was a Black man at the end of the day leaving that set. That when you didn't see that sketch anymore that made those officers laugh, they forgot about that. They forgot about that. The show that they loved, that they like to see, he's on it. They forgot that he was a Black man at the end of the day. It didn't matter. So he sent a very powerful message. Educate yourselves on what's going on. Don't wait for it to hit you because you don't know if you'll be around to say what could have happened or what you could have done differently. Do it now.
For far too long, people have accepted being mistreated. I'm one of them. This should have came out 3 minutes after it happened. It took the death of George Floyd. It took the killing of Breonna Taylor. It took the killings of a lot of people within the last 4 months, if we're being honest, for us to wake up. And still, the percentage is way too high for the people that are not awoke yet. He said, "I can't breathe. America needs to breathe." He's damn right. They need to breathe in the reality that we live in. Don't wait. If you feel that you've been mistreated, if you feel that you've been abused, if you feel that you've been assaulted, if you feel like in any way that you're not equal and you're made to feel that way, stand up and say something. I applaud him for doing it when he did it and how he did it. And by him, I'm talking about Jay Farrell. But in reality, I really deep down think that should have came out 3 minutes after it happened. And the reason why he didn't do it We won't know the answer. But I will tell you, when you watch the video, you can feel it and you can see it. The disgust in his eyes. He's kicking himself that he didn't have that come out sooner. It should have came out sooner. He could have been George Floyd. He wasn't, so he's able to tell his story. Marvin said it. Don't wait, because you never know if you will be around to tell that story. He's lucky, he's fortunate, but that shit should have came out 3 minutes after it happened.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, Tony. I wanted everyone to kind of have their own piece before I kind of articulated my point. Disappointment is an understatement. I would almost borderline say disgust. And to what you said, Tony, you could see it in his eyes. Understanding when he said, like, hey, that could have been me, when he's referring to George Floyd. And I don't remember the exact date. I believe it was April 20th, something along those lines. And we can't know. I'm not blaming Jay Farrow. He has nothing to do with the death of George Floyd. But to be able to produce that, and if he could have, we don't know, right? We don't know. We don't know how long it took him to get that video from wherever he got it from. Because just for you listeners at home, it looks to be some sort of streetlight camera or possibly the gas station's like bird's eye view camera. We can't know. I don't know personally. Again, this is from the gentleman himself on his Instagram. For all we know, he was fighting for this. So I'm very conflicted. So when I say disgust, it's disheartening in particular because we don't know if Jay was fighting for these things to get it, and this was as soon as he could get it, or if, as Tony said, looking at his eyes and looking at the emotions in his face, that it took George Floyd's death and murder for him to really recognize what happened and what could have happened to him. And I think, it's disgusting for me to even say this, but I do believe, like based on what I had said previously, where he felt he hadn't really had racism until that moment, I believe it's more likely the latter than the former. And it's disappointing in that sense. So it's an unfortunate tale. I'm glad at least he got to tell his story. I think it's very courageous of him to do so. I think it's very challenging, particularly right now in society, to sit here and be another human being, and in this case, a fame and acclaim, to say, look how the police mistreated me. He's an actor that doesn't have, series and things like that. He doesn't have like a regular gig anymore. So I always applaud people that are willing to take that extra step. But really sad. Please check out the video if you haven't seen it. If you have, let us know what you think as well. There's no song of the week this week. Nothing can really tie the emotions of the two stories we just discussed, because disgusting is probably the best way to describe it. It's been a bad week in entertainment. It's been a bad week in society. It's been a bad week in the world. And on that note, unfortunately, a somber entertainment ending.
Warning. You are about to be teleported to the world of wacky news. Prepare to be wacky.
That's right, folks. It's time for Wacky News. And here's your host, DJ Tony Ray.
All right, guys. It's wacky news for you. I'm going to start it off with some wacky fun facts. So, here we go. In Switzerland, it is illegal to own just one guinea pig. Banging your head against a wall for an hour burns 150 calories. Thank you for whoever did that test. A flock of crows is known as a murder. 7% of American adults believe that chocolate milk comes from brown cows. They don't? Okay. Bananas are curved because they grow towards the sun. Billy goats urinate on their own head to smell more attractive to the females. I wonder what they're eating. Movie trailers were originally shown after the movie, which is why they were called trailers. Heart attacks are more likely to happen on a Monday. Must be the case of the Mondays. The average male gets bored of a shopping trip after 26 minutes. Americans in their 20s, whether partnered or not, have sex about 80 times a year or more than once per week. Honeybees can recognize human faces. Tell that to my brother-in-law, who is a beekeeper and keeps getting stung. Them bees don't like you, bro. And that is the fun facts that are wacky of the week. So,
oh my gosh. All I gotta say is those bees better be drinking pineapple juice. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, you gotta be drinking pineapple juice.
Pineapple juice. The ladies love it.
All right, so for my wacky speed story, a man was surprised by how much his watch was worth. In the 1970s, a man treated himself to a Rolex watch. The watch cost him a little more than $300. Earlier this year, he took the watch on the TV show Antiques Roadshow. The expert at the show told him the watch was worth $700,000. Talk about an investment. I have a question for all three of you. Richie, what's something you own that you hope one day is a good investment?
Oh, wow. That's not a wacky question. That's a serious question. Oof. Okay, what's the one thing I own that I hope will be worth a lot of money someday? I'm gonna go with the printed shot of Marvin's face that he uses for his profile pic. I hope one day that's worth some money and he'll sign it for me.
He better sign it for you.
I'll take y'all up on that.
Justo, would you ever wear a Rolex? No.
No, okay. Dude. I don't know if you can see it in our webcams. My watches do not. They take a beating. And how much is a Rolex? Is like thousands of dollars. No.
Depends.
It depends.
My new one, the cheapest one's about $7,000.
Let's just put it this way. I worked at a gun store and they had guns in there that were worth like $250,000. I wouldn't even touch the case. Let alone, I could never imagine taking it out and shooting it. You know, like definitely not. I'm not having $10,000 hanging around on my wrist that's going to bump into the car door or the wall. No.
I got you. Marvin, how much would you pay for a watch?
The same as Odell paid for his Richard Mille watch. Let's just say I would get a Richard Mille watch just so I could feel like I've done something in this world that has been like, wow, I've got a little piece of I got a watch in my hand that is just absolutely pointless.
I like it. So I emailed you all some information for Wacky Game of the Week. So I'm going to give you the rundown. We're going to recast lead roles in movies.
Okay.
You have casting control over these movies. Okay. The rules are it has to be a current actor or actress, and there can't be any repeats. We're just going to follow our regular flow. So after, we'll just do Marvin, me, Richie, and Justo. Is that okay? Or do we want to do a draft, or are we okay with that? Okay, good. All right. So movie number 1, Marvin, we're going to do a remake of The Wizard of Oz. Who is your Dorothy?
Zendaya.
Nice. Okay. I got you on that one. I feel you, bro. Okay. I put Anna Kendrick, and for backup, I had something else, but I don't have to worry about it. So I'm going to go with Anna Kendrick. Richie?
You just literally took the person I was going to use. To me, I named Anna Kendrick, but let me...
Okay. Well, you take Anna Kendrick. I'll take my other one.
No, that's okay. No, that's okay. You took Anna Kendrick, so we coming up with a new white girl for this one. Okay. Let's see here. Who's it going? Because she's from Kansas. So as much as I love Zendaya, she ain't from Kansas. Let's see here. I'm gonna go with Kate Mara. That's who I'm gonna go with.
Okay.
She was Sue Storm. Yada yada yada. She's also in House of Cards. in season 1 for a short period of time, Kate Mara.
Gotcha. Go ahead, Justo.
I'm gonna go with Samantha Barks, and if you guys don't know who that is, she was a stage actress, but she was in the movie Les Miserables. She played Eponine. Incredible voice, and since you took Anna Kendrick, then that's who I'm gonna go with.
Gotcha. I also had Zoe Deschanel as my other one, just in case.
Oh,
Can she
okay.
sing?
Yeah, she can sing.
Yep, she can sing. She's part of a group.
Heck yeah.
All right, so we're going to remake Pulp Fiction. Who is your 2 lead actors that played John Travolta and Samuel L. Jackson? Marvin.
I said Chris Rock and Nick Offerman.
Okay, I like that. For mine, I picked Tom Cruise and Jamie Foxx.
Nah.
Oh, all right. All right. Well, I didn't go with the zebra parody like that. I just went with who I wanted to see as the 2. And I actually went with, they've also been in a movie together. I went with Billy Eichner and Seth Rogen. They were Timon and Pumbaa in the recent Lion King, and they're freaking hilarious. So I'd really like to see that tandem once again for a whole movie.
Justo?
I think that what The Rock and Kevin Hart got going on is pure gold, and I think that could be another really interesting one right there. So The Rock and Kevin Hart.
I like it. You're good. We're remaking Dirty Dancing, guys. Who's your 2 leads, guy and girl? Marvin?
Jerry Seinfeld and Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
What? Oh man, I didn't see that. All right. So I got Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Ariana Grande, but I would flip the script and make her the dancer and him the nerdy boy. Richie?
Mine's actually kind of similar to yours. I was gonna go with Channing Tatum, just because, I mean, the boy can dance. And Camila Cabello, the singer, I think like she's just a small girl. He could like fling her around. It would work really well. So let's go with those 2.
Justo?
Yeah, according to last week's entertainment stories, this would cause ripples in Hollywood, but I was thinking Usher and J-Lo.
Ooh, I like that. Usher and J-Lo.
I like Usher, baby. That guy.
Usher. So we're going to remake I Am Legend. Who would be your lead actor? Marvin? You on mute again, Marvin?
Who would be my lead actor for I Am Legend?
Yes. Who is it?
Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Okay. I went a different route. I picked Margot Robbie.
Oh, okay.
I like that.
So I gotta be honest, Tony, when I looked at this list, the name that just popped into my head instantly just made me start laughing. So I don't even care that this isn't a good cast because, you know, Will Smith did a great job with the garbage movie that was. I'm going to go with John Heater from like the Napoleon Dynamite movies. I think that would be amazing personally.
I like it. Oh my gosh. I got to see that movie now. Justo.
I'm going to go with James McAvoy because he's another actor that I feel like can handle a movie like this. You know, it's got to be hard to be on screen like James Franco in 127 Hours and like Will Smith in this one. You're on screen virtually by yourself for the most of it. So you got to have somebody that can draw that focus. I think like what he's been doing with Split and Glass, I think James McAvoy would be awesome.
Awesome. All right. Fan favorite. Remake of Ace Ventura. Who would be your lead? Marvin.
This is tough. I've gone the comedian route today. So I'm thinking of who would be strong in this spot here. I think I'm going to go with Will Ferrell.
Okay. Will Ferrell, I got you. For my lead, I'm flipping it again. I'm doing a girl. I'm doing Kristen Wiig.
Oh, I like that. I feel like she would be like the Jim Carrey.
Yes.
That for sure.
Absolutely.
Honestly, I don't care. It's already been said before. He's doing double overtime on this one. I would go with Kevin Hart for Ace Ventura. I just would love to see him dealing with animals. I just don't understand how that would work.
He doesn't like them, so it would be awesome. Justo.
Well, I'm assuming that I can't do this, so I will say if I was gonna have to recast, I would go the same route and be different. I think Melissa McCarthy would be a funny one. But no, if I'm recasting a new Ace Ventura, it's gonna have Jim Carrey in it.
Gotcha.
Because there's only one Ace.
Remake of Mrs. Doubtfire. Marvin, who's your lead actor?
For Mrs. Doubtfire, I'd have to go with George Carlin.
Okay.
And that is a real answer because he was living during that time. So, yes, that is my lead.
We're good.
This is my list.
I'm gonna go on the other side of that, and I'm gonna say I really want to see Eddie Murphy play Mrs. Doubtfire.
That's good. That's good.
That's good.
And he's used to all that makeup.
It's another double overtime for me. It's a challenging role because we love that movie here. We love Robin Williams. I have to go with someone who I know can do that kind of slapstick humor and like make a jerk of themselves and still be entertaining. I'm gonna go with The Rock. Tooth Fairy. He's done lots of crazy stuff.
I like it. Justo?
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to back. I think Jim Carrey would be another good one for this. I was gonna say Eddie Murphy, but that's unfortunately off the table. So, but yeah, I could see Jim Carrey doing it.
I apologize. I had Zach Galifianakis as my backup.
That would be good, actually.
All right, so the remake of the Medea movie. This is all you, Justo. Who is your lead for your Medea?
That's tough. It's got to be somebody who can. I guess this isn't fair because he's kind of done it, but I think Martin Lawrence would be funny to watch if we're gonna do it across the board. I think he would be the funniest to do a different Medea.
I got you. He did do Big Mama's House, so I'll give you some points for that one. Marvin, remake of Iron Man. Who could be Tony Stark besides Robert Downey Jr.?
Gonna have to go with Blair Underwood.
Okay. I see you there. Richie, you get to remake Beauty and the Beast. Who's your Belle?
Well, side note, as we've discussed, Gaston's my favorite. Belle and Jasmine are my favorite princesses by far. But I get to cast who I want to be Belle, and I am in love with Keke Palmer. So Keke Palmer is my Belle, 1000%.
Okay, I like it. And for me, I get to remake Sister Act. So who would be playing Sister Mary Clarence in my movie? None other than Wanda Sykes. I love Wanda Sykes. Oh yeah.
That's a good one.
All right, now this wasn't on here, but this is a bonus one because I know we got to get going. From one of our viewers last week, they had posted a comment, and we were playing a game about last week, like who would you pick? So if you could have someone narrate your life, a movie made about you, and they had to narrate the movie for your life, would it be James Earl Jones or Morgan Freeman? Marvin.
James Earl Jones.
Yes, sir. Richie.
Well, I think James is fitting for Marvin because he has that baritone.
Mm-hmm.
I would have to go with Morgan Freeman. I'm a little lighter. I don't think I could handle the James Earl narrative.
I got you. Justo.
That is tough, man. Those are like two of the best voices. Oh man. Morgan Freeman. I think Morgan Freeman.
Morgan Freeman. Okay, that's good. thank you for the person that made the comment. I'm glad we were able to get that. I'm going to switch my answer up because I'm not going to choose those two. But for me, I would like Christopher Walken to tell my story. I just think it'd keep it, the people in there listening. So, all right, here we go. Word of the week, and then we're done with wacky news. Word of the week is finifugal. Finifugal. That's F-I-N-I-F-U-G-A-L. The definition is afraid of finishing anything or avoiding the ending as of a story, a trip, a relationship, etc. So here's an example. Ted is still dating Pam only because he is finifugal and hates to break up and start over.
That's right, folks. It's now
Word of the
time
week.
for the Artist Spotlight
Finifugal.
on Just
And
Those
that,
Best
my friends,
Podcasts.
is wacky news.
All right, folks, welcome back. It's time for the Artist Spotlight. I'm here with Abigail Linhardt. Abigail, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How you guys doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. Let me introduce you to my friends. This is Marvin, DJ Tony Ray, and Richie Phillips.
Hi, Abigail. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you guys.
Great to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you too.
I'm a little intimidated. Your microphone is much better than most of our guests. So.
Had to make a good first impression.
Absolutely. She came prepared. So we've had music artists on, we've had a comedian on, but you're our first author, and we've all been really excited about having you on. How long have you been writing?
Pretty much forever, off and on. Decided during my edgy teenage years that I should probably do it as a profession because I found out I was pretty good at it.
Awesome. Yeah. Marvin.
Abigail, great to have you on the show today. Thank you for coming to kicking with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And congratulations on your book release.
Yeah, the Camelot Project, first in a trilogy, comes out today.
We're all excited about that. And so I just had a couple questions for you today. What's been the best and the worst part about your writing process?
So the best part actually has been that I discovered my writing process for the first time in the last couple of years. I've had a lot of processes and they've been really hit or miss, but actually getting something accepted into publication has really made me look at it and figure out what works for me, because I got deadlines now. I haven't had those before. So finding my process was great. The worst part is that it is a long process and you don't get to see that a lot. And I blame like those speed videos, like speed painting. Everyone's like, oh yeah, right. It's like really fast. No, it takes me about a year to plot, write, edit, and produce a novel. And so it's a long process. And I think that's probably the worst of it, is I wish I could do more.
Yeah, it sounds like you really found that dedication, really found yourself through your process and really just focused in on that.
Yeah, it's taken me 30 years, but here it is.
I feel that. So for all those aspiring writers out there that may be having trouble articulating their thoughts and putting it down on paper, what would be your advice for all those writers out there on how to handle writer's block?
So I tell all my students, I teach at the college level. I tell my students and I tell anyone who comes to me asking that question, always outline. Being a pantser is a big thing in the writing community where you just write by the seat of your pants. And I'm big into outlining. I say if you have an outline, you wrote it while you were inspired, right? So now with your outline, you will never get stuck. You know what you have to write. It might not be good and it might really suck, but at least you're getting words on the paper because you can't edit something that's not there. So I always tell people outline, and if you can't even do that, then write anything. Write a journal entry, write about the coworker you hate, or write about, like this amazing pasta you had, just anything, get words down.
So no matter what, just organize those thoughts, get them out there on paper, and just don't be scared to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Even if it's not the project you're working on now, just write anything. I've gone weeks, writing really bad poetry and not getting a single chapter down, on my book that's, due in like 2 months or whatever.
Absolutely. Well, we thank you for coming on the show today, and we're really excited to read your book, and everyone out there is excited too. Can't wait.
Thank you.
Hi, Abigail. How you doing?
Hi, Richie. I'm great. How are you?
Doing well. Honestly, you're probably my favorite guest already. I used to be a writer myself, so big,
awesome.
Dear to my heart. Journalist, a little different type of writing. But I wanted to expand upon a question Marvin asked you, because this is, as a writer, this was always my struggle too, is the process. What is your process? You said you've discovered it, right? It took you a long time, because for me, it was character driven. I would have to write and develop my characters first, and then I would work on a story. I always try to do plot and then go the other way. And for me, I had no success that way. But for you, and for somebody who's never read your work, how did you end up developing your process? What is your style? What do you focus on?
Funny enough, character as well. I love character-driven everything. All the video games I play are always very character-driven. I like movies and TV shows and books that are character-driven. So I do normally start with a character. I like to build this person, and I write fantasy and science fiction. So, what is their language, their culture, their religion? Are they from this planet, another planet? So much goes into it, and it's a lot of work, but it's fun, right? So then I'll take this character, and it's what's going on in their world, and then how are they going to react to that? Is there some kind of uprising? Are we overthrowing the king? Is it a revolution? And how are they going to react to that? Or are they in an apocalypse on their alien planet? How are they going to react to that? So sometimes I'll start with a character that starts out maybe in a typical medieval fantasy world. And then by the end of figuring out who they are, we're on Saturn V and there's an oncoming asteroid. So it does change a lot, but I try and start with the characters because I want them to be different by the end of the book. The book is about them and their journey.
A quick follow-up question on that. So I know, just because I follow you on social media, you're into Dungeons and Dragons as well, right?
Yeah, a little too much.
I'm right there with you. I'm like DMing a world right now. And so I kind of, that inspired a question. Have you ever been stuck on a character and rolled for it?
Yes and no. There is a cardinal rule in the fantasy writing world, because most of us who write, in that genre are DMs or have been DMs, willingly or reluctantly. And the rule of thumb is do not write your quest into a story. So, but sometimes I do go to the player handbook, and they just have these lists of things to think of, that could disrupt your character's life. Nobody wants to write about the character who has the perfect life. Yeah, there it is. Nobody wants to write about that character who has the perfect life, and that book is just full of horrible things that can happen to someone from all kinds of different angles. So I will look at it sometimes, but I have never rolled a character. But I have done the opposite, where I have ported a character I have written into D&D.
Oh, that's awesome.
For example, there's a character named Folkvar in my book Reverie that came out last year, and I have played Folkvar, and now I am playing Folkvar the Second. So,
awesome. Yeah, I just had to ask.
Hi, Abigail. So I had a question for you, actually, a follow-up question. It sounded like you're very much into the fantasy sci-fi realm. And I'm curious, what got you started into that? Like, why is that what you ended up loving to write?
So like everyone else, I think it probably goes back to what I was read as a child. So I had a great childhood. My mom did read to me from, Grimm's Brothers and Hans Christian Andersen, before I went to bed, all those classic fairy tales. And then my family used to get together on Sunday nights, and my dad read through Lord of the Rings. So it was just always normal to me. And I grew up playing Final Fantasy with all my brothers. We played Hero Quest, which is a really old tabletop RPG. So it just always was there. And then as I grew up, I wanted to branch out into other writing, but the amount of research you have to do to write like a crime thriller is ridiculous. So I'll just stick with making up my own rules and religions because it's easier for me to remember.
Totally fair. What you just said is because I absolutely love like suspense and like thrillers and crime. And it's challenging. It's very challenging because that was what I was like, okay, this is what I read. So this is what I want to write. But then what you just said was the reality of things. It's like, well, I don't know all these laws and like how police actually look things up. So not as easy as I thought. So I have one last question for you. We had already kind of discussed this off the show, but your new book, Arthurian Legend, but it's a space opera. Can you elaborate a little more to the listeners because it's out today, and I'm sure a lot of them are curious about this book.
Yeah, so I did write a whole blog post about kind of my thought process of how it came into being because it was a pretty cool project, but I didn't love it. And it was a dare, actually. Someone I know dared me to write something not fantasy. They said, write science fiction. And I was like, I can do that, you know? But then I knew I had to come at it from an angle that I understood. And I knew an Arthurian legend pretty much backwards and forwards, the myths and all that. So I was like, I'll do Arthur, but in space. That's science fiction, right? That works for Star Wars, which is fantasy, but that's another discussion. So I started with that. I put Uther, who is Arthur's father, on a spaceship, waking up from cryo sleep, and I was like, this is how we go from here. But then it quickly devolved from science fiction because I just can't write it. I love reading that. I love reading sci-fi. But currently it's not my genre. And then it turned into space opera, which is more light on the science, more fiction, more drama, which is perfect for Arthurian Legend because it's just full of drama.
Yeah, thank you very much, Abigail. I 100% agree.
Hi, Abigail. How are you?
I'm doing great, DJ Tony. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for being on the show. Congrats about the book being released today. So I have 3 questions for you. Earlier, you were talking about books that were read to you. So I want to know, what's your favorite book that from your childhood?
So my absolute favorite, and you can probably see this in a lot of my writing, is actually The Chronicles of Narnia and The Neverending Story. And I can't decide which of those I like more. They're both very philosophical and they're both portal fantasy. So they're definitely tied for first right now.
Okay, awesome. I can see those. Now, you were talking about your projects and, it could take up to a year. So I'm wondering, what system do you have on, like, how long do you write a day?
As much as I can. I was something of a nomad when it came to jobs up until this spring. And I had a lot of free time. Now I have an 8 to 5. So I've had to revamp my entire lifestyle. I get an hour for lunch, and right now I'm sitting in my office editing my romance that comes out in August. And then when I get home, I give myself 2 hours, and I'm like, I cannot play video games until I write 1,500 words. So I sit down and I try and bang it out. Sometimes it takes 2 hours, sometimes it takes 3. And, but I got to get it done. I got to give myself those deadlines.
Absolutely. It's good to be disciplined and have that discipline. So you were just talking about editing. That's kind of weird because my third question is, what's the funniest thing that you had to edit out of one of your books?
I had the word importance in the manuscript. I don't even remember what the sentence was, but this is the first one that comes to mind. I wrote impotence. And obviously that is a horrible thing to mistake. And I didn't catch it until, and my editor didn't catch it either. So I guess it was just so close, it went by unnoticed, and I was reading through. And I just happened to see it. And I was like, well, wait, what is going on in this sentence? And so I went back and read it. I was like, oh, that's the wrong word.
Well, good thing you caught it, right?
Yeah.
So I did say that was the last question, but I am curious because we all play video games here. So when you're not writing and when you're not at work and you're not doing D&D, what are you playing and what console?
So I I actually was gifted a PlayStation 4, and that is the first console I have had since the PlayStation. I am a PC Master Race gamer. And right now I am playing through Red Dead Redemption 2. Before that, it was Far Cry 5. Before that, it was Witcher 3. So those are the kind of games I like. But unfortunately, I am part of the toxic League of Legends community, and that is my staple on my Twitch.
Okay, that's okay. That's okay. I appreciate you taking the time to answer some of my questions.
Thanks for asking.
You're welcome.
So guys, Abigail's been so gracious as to share with us a little snippet of her audiobook, Ocean Gypsy. Abigail, could you tell us a little bit about Ocean Gypsy?
Sure. So in order to reach some more viewers, I decided to start doing some audio adventures, is what I call them, because I know a lot of people aren't reading right now, which might sound horrible and like I'm condemning people, but I'm not. I mean, I don't read as much as I should either. So then I wrote this short story, Ocean Gypsy, for a competition last year, and it didn't make it. So anything that doesn't make it, I put either out on Kindle Direct for 99 cents, or I put in my newsletter, or I'm going to make into an audio adventure. And this one was just perfect for it because it's short, sweet, and ocean audio is really soothing. So I figured this one would be a great one for an audio adventure.
Great. Well, I know we're all excited to hear it. And without further ado, folks, here is a snippet from Ocean Gypsy by Abigail Linhardt on the Justo's Best podcast.
Edith always had a fire going in an old black wood-burning stove, as she had never updated the old house for modern heating. "I'll get the kettle on. You go get her some blankets and a dress from my closet," she ordered Lily. Lily crashed into the rocker by the fire, her hair a matted mess from the wind. She gaped at her friend, but when Edith didn't stop to acknowledge her horror, she did as she was asked. They laid the girl down on the old love seat and wrapped her up in blankets after changing out her wet sundress for a much cozier one. Edith took a brush to her tangled hair while ordering Lily to wash her arms and legs in warm water. "What are those?" Edith asked. Lily wiped the scales off the girl's legs. "Fish scales. She must have been in the water during the storm last night." "Are you sure they are fish scales?" Edith asked, looking at the rainbow scale in the bowl. "What else would they be? We used to get scales stuck to us when we went swimming," Lily grumbled. "Why don't I wash and brush her hair?" "No, don't do that," Edith said quickly. The girl's hair was thick, soft, and long. Brushing it would be wrong, like calming a storm at sea. She eyed the scales, then looked at the girl's face. Most girls are lovely, but this one had magic under her skin that Edith could not quite place. "How old do you think she is?" Edith asked. 30? Lily patted her legs dry. "Maybe." There was something enchanting about the girl's face. Once she was warm, her color returned, making her lips red and her cheeks pink. She sighed and began to wake up. "Stand up, look presentable," Edith hissed, pulling Lily to her feet. The girl opened her eyes and screamed. She stood up, but fell back down from a head rush. "It's all right, dear," Edith cooed, handing her the hot cup of tea. "We found you on the beach. We don't know who to call." "I know who," Lily grumbled. The girl's eyes went wide, skipping back and forth between the two of them. She took a deep breath to steady her nerves, then asked a question in a shaking, foreign tone. Lily and Edith glanced at each other. They had no idea what language it was. Seeing their confusion, the girl took a big drink of the hot tea. After she swallowed, she began to wave her hands. She made her fingers undulate. "Water," Edith said, smiling. "Were you in the water?" She pointed out the window to the ocean. Frowning for a moment, the girl nodded. Then she wiggled her fingers and snapped them.
All right, welcome back to the Artist Spotlight on Justo's Best podcast. That was a short segment from Ocean Gypsy, an audiobook by Abigail Linhardt, found on YouTube. Abigail, I love all of the elements that you bring together with your audiobooks, the soothing nature of your voice and the sound effects and the storytelling and the voices you create for each character. It's just lovely.
Awesome. Thanks. I'm glad you appreciated it. I thought I bit off more than I could chew when I decided to grab all these sound effects. But actually collecting those is really addicting.
Yeah, I was going to say the only concern I have is that you have a very soothing voice, like you said. So I feel like if I don't want to listen to you while I'm driving. At least with the fire that I heard, it was very hard to like pay attention other than like just relax and, you know, kind of close my eyes and just listen.
Well, we'll get some Game of Thrones like fight scenes and stuff for you in the next one.
Yeah,
make it exciting.
Maybe that's the only way I'll keep up with how you're able to articulate. It was very soothing.
I really enjoyed it, Abigail.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I thought the imagery in the snippet itself was like what you look for, like when you're listening to an audiobook. It's kind of like playing that movie in your mind, you know, and you get captivated. And not only that, the voice in itself, like Tony was saying, it's just makes it all together fire.
Thank you so much.
So Abigail, when you're doing the voices when you're reading them, do you already have them pre-planned on like how you're going to make somebody sound, or work me through your process of doing those voices?
Sometimes they'll come to me when I'm, 12 minutes into recording, and I'll accidentally do something different because the situation demanded it. And then I'll think, oh, that was way better. Now I got to start over. But the more I am recording, the more I try and just read them out loud first several times to see what it sounds like. I'll do a lot of snippets for myself because, what's in my head doesn't always translate to what comes out the other side of the mic.
Awesome. Yeah, I just wanted to know because I do voices. I know Justo does voices, and I was just wondering what that process was. So thank you.
So Abigail, I do want to talk about, you have a book that's coming out. We mentioned it a few times. A New Home comes out today, correct?
Yeah, that one's coming out today.
And then you did have a book come out at the start of the year, correct? Named Reverie?
Yeah, I did. That's my Portal Fantasy lit RPG.
Well, very cool. For those who haven't had a chance to read it, could you tell us a little bit about Reverie?
Yeah, so this one is, Reverie is definitely my homage to the Neverending Story. And it's a portal fantasy is what I called it. Then after my editor read it, she was like, no, this is like got elements of lit RPG. And I had no idea what that was. The best example is recently Ready Player One, where they go into the world and they play the character and experience the story as a character they've created. And I was like, oh yeah, that does happen in Reverie. So, because of course, right?
Right. So you've got Reverie, A New Home, and then there's another one that you've got coming out at the end of the summer. Isn't that right?
Yeah, another dare novel. Someone dared me to, again, not write fantasy. So I decided on romance, which is not something I read or write a lot about. It's not really my thing. Someone did read it and they were like, yeah, there's elements of romance. It's very sword and sorcery. It's very urban fantasy. So I don't know what to, hashtag it as yet. I'm going to leave that up to my editor and their marketing team. But I call it an urban fantasy romance.
So keep an eye out. That book's called These Darker Streets, comes out this August from Abigail Linhardt. And also make sure you check out Reverie and A New Home. Abigail will leave you a list of where you can find her work. Be sure to check that out. Abigail, before you go, I had to bring this up. So we met working at an escape room back in Findlay, Ohio. And, we always talked about how interesting it was to see people's reactions to being locked up. Have you ever used any of that work as inspiration for your writing?
Mostly what I look for is the psychological degeneration of people's sanity in those rooms. I love watching people come in with such high hopes. And when you work in an escape room, as long as I did, you can tell pretty much right away what kind of group a group is going to be. The people who come in so positive and confident, and then just watching the rooms slowly tear away at their psyche, and they get depressed and they start getting angry. They might fight with each other, which might sound horrible, but once you unlock that door, everyone's happy again. And I know that that's going to happen. But I like seeing what specifically, like what puzzle disturbs certain people more. And then it does actually influence sometimes how I make people react to things, because it is a situation under pressure and we don't get to see that every day. But when you have, the live feed right there, it's like, oh, this is good character fodder.
Well, on behalf of myself and the guys here at Justo's Best, I'd like to thank you again for coming on the show. I hope that you'll come back and see us. Will you come back and see us?
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime you want me back, I like to talk about myself.
Well, that was Abigail Linhardt on the Artist Spotlight. Don't go anywhere. Coming up, we have closing thoughts on the Justo's Best podcast.
Hi, my name is Abigail Linhardt. You can find me online at www.abigaillinhardt.com. That's ABIGAILLINHARDT.com. You can also find me on Instagram. My handle is Promthanius. That's PROMTHANIUS. And that's also me on Twitch. So I'll see you guys there.
This is DJ Tony Ray, and you're listening to Justo's Best podcast.
All right, guys, it is that time where we say see you later. And this time, it's not just for the week. So just to clarify, folks, we're not going away forever. This is just the end of season 1. So we'll be back. We'll be back on July 13th with the premiere of season 2. We'll have Brandon Bethel on as our featured artist spotlight. And we're going to have a whole new season of some fun and new exciting things for everybody. So I'm going to pass it around the horn for final thoughts. Marvin.
I want to thank you all for tuning into our show this season, having patience with us as we strive to get better every week, bringing you guys new content, expressing ourselves, wanting to hear you guys' opinions on the wide range of everything we talked about this season. And we're looking forward to all of you spending time with us next season as we continue to bring you that realness, that edginess, overall, just to relate to you, because this is ultimately for you guys out there. And I want to thank Justin, Richie, Tony for everything that they do, everything that they are, what they bring to this show. Thank you fellas, for your voices, for your bravery, for your insights, and for your friendship. And I just want to tell you folks out there, keep stepping up, keep speaking out, keep advocating. Don't stop. Don't go back until we see change. And we're looking forward to you tuning in to season 2 and beyond. And we'll see y'all soon.
Thank you, Marvin. Thank you. DJ Tony Ray.
Season 1 was a blast. I'm Finny Fugle, with this being the final show. Nevertheless, thank you to Abigail for being on the show. Thank you to the 3 of you for being you. And I had a blast on season 1 of the Justo's podcast. I encourage you all, if you haven't listened to all of the episodes, you can find them on Podbean, Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, iHeart, and iTunes, and a plethora of other platforms. Thank you for listening every week. We appreciate it. We'll see you on my birthday, July 13th. I love each and every one of you.
I'd also like to thank Abigail first and foremost, and shout out to her book, A New Home, that's coming out today, drops today. Make sure you guys check that out. We have links on our Facebook and our website and things of that nature. She was a lot of fun. She's a great guest. I'd like to thank all of our guests, as a matter of fact. Thank you guys and ladies for contributing. I really appreciate it. It's been a wonderful time. And to the audience, thank you very much. As you can see through our episodes, we've been growing. We've been trying to get better. A special shout out to Justin in this case, Justo. Thank you to Justin for doing the editing. It's not easy, and I'm sure he's learned that you can't do something within, less than a work hour and work day, quite frankly, to get things done. I'm sure you're going to see the growth from episode 1 through up till now. And if you haven't heard episode 1, I implore you to check it out just to see how much Justin's editing has improved. And quite frankly, how much our mic quality has improved across the board. We're trying our best for you guys. We want to mix things up. Season 2 is going to be awesome. I don't want to spoil anything, but you're going to see some format changes. You're going to see new perspectives. You're going to see a lot more banter between us. You're going to see a lot more laughter, quite frankly. We're going to be a little less edited than we have been because we want to give you guys more rawness and honestly, more of our rapport. You guys don't get to see a lot of it. And that's one of the things I feel like we've neglected to you as an audience. And the only thing I ask of you before I send my goodbyes is that I'd love for every one of you to give us suggestions. Reach out. What do you want from us? What do you think we could do? We definitely want to incorporate you more than we have been. We're trying to find creative ways, but at the end of the day, anything you guys want to do, feel free. Drop a link, in our emails. We're listening. We're looking forward to it. We're going to have a website launching soon. Carrie, Tony's wife, has been hard at work at that, so thanks to Carrie, and hopefully we'll be seeing you guys very shortly. And until then, see you later.
Well, guys, thank you so much for all your kind words towards me, and the feeling is mutual. This show, it's so crazy to me to think back. I just wanted to do more radio. I had done some sportscasting. Was like, man, I want to check out this radio station that this school has, and then I get linked up with DJ Tony Ray and the Beach Bash, and we just started creating, we kept adding, and then when we were all together, it just became this awesome thing and this great memory. And so I'm sitting around in quarantine like, I wonder if anybody would listen if I even brought it back. And I posted it, and I had the happiest day of my life is seeing all you guys within the hour, like, let's do it. We're all on. And we've grown so much. And I appreciate, Richie, the kind words on the editing, but it's also just you guys. You guys are awesome to work with, your perspectives. I learn something every single week. Every time I talk to you guys on or off the air, I learn, and I thank you guys for that and who you are and what you do. Huge thank you to all of the artists this season. Huge shout out and thank you to Abigail Linhardt for coming on our show and promoting the book and telling us a little bit about her writing style and everything that she does. It's amazing. Make sure you do check out A New Home, comes out today. She's got a private viewing event. We posted right on the Just Those Best page. You can find her and you can find her page, and you can go and watch that event this evening at 7 p.m. I believe, live on Facebook. We will be back in just a few short weeks, and I do appreciate, like Marvin said, everybody bearing with us as we mold and find ourselves as a show. We are so focused on bringing the important stuff to you and entertaining you and knowing that you're going to tune back in next week. This is about having fun, and this is also about using this platform for what we believe is the right purpose and making everybody happy. And as always, until July 13th on Tony's special episode birthday party. Now that I know that that's his birthday, I gotta get something in the works. Until then, though, folks, live, laugh, love like it's your last. Thank you for an awesome season. We'll see you guys in a few weeks. This has been a Just Those Best production.